Is thinking. All right, and we are live, and I want to wait a second. Let me post this out. I was trying to open up Twitter earlier, but I was having issues when I was trying to open it up from my browser. It was just refreshing. Yeah, it keeps auto refreshing. I don't know what's going on here. This is weird. Let me go here, pull up YouTube, and we'll get this thing up and running. You view channel live and share. Let's share on X. Going live with, all right, and one stupid fuck. That's the best Twitter handle ever, by the way. That shit makes me laugh every time I see that shit.
I know, it's so good, right?
Talking about taxes, freedom, slavery. Let's see here. State, national process. Stop paying taxes. All right, I'm going to tag a couple people too, because there are a few at CZ. Let's do Jay-Z. And we will also do Rags to Riches. He's a cool dude. We're also going to do Crypto King. He's really cool. Space Crypto CRYPTO. Oh, 0. Crypto King. Who else is on this? Let's do why am I brain farting right now? Adam. Vibra Finance. Here we go. And post. So there's a couple guys. I've talked about this a few other times on stream with some other people, and a couple guys in the community here. Vibra Finance. He's a really, really cool dude. He hit me up and he was like, dude, you got to check out Brandon Joe Williams. What's up, Freddie? What's up, Hex Monkey? How you doing, brother? Just waiting for some more people to jump in before we kind of get into things here. But he put me onto you, and I watched that video that you have on your Twitter. I think it's your pinned tweet, and it talks about money and how the banks work and setting up your own stuff, basically being a creditor instead of a debtor.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. I love that. And I've been in the process of going through and correcting and updating my status. And everyone calls it something else or doing something else. If you call it something else, that's cool. That's just how I know it, or how it was explained to me. So that's kind of when I reference that. If there's a better term or something that I should use, please tell me, because I'm still learning. I've been on this path for about 1.5 years. And like we were discussing in the green room, I just got some documents back from the State Department. I need to get those resent back out. But how did you get started in all of this? What was it that woke you up to the lie that we've been told and the truth that we're learning and that we know about?
The Employment Development Department.
Okay.
Was coming after me for some payroll tax goofiness, and they wrote me a huge bill, and they were coming after me, and I was just a normal guy and didn't know how to handle it. And I went to some attorneys and some accountants, and they all said to make a payment plan, and I thought that was a fucking joke. It's like, Jesus, you guys went to school for 8 years to tell me that? You guys should have your licenses stripped, and you shouldn't be allowed to practice law or any of this shit. You guys are pathetic losers. And that just wasn't going to happen. So that's what started it all. And then as that progressed farther and farther, I was going to lien. I threatened to lien the EDD. I didn't know what the hell that meant at the time. And then I learned about private irrevocable trusts, and then I just dissolved the corporation, and I moved all the assets and the credit card processing and everything to a trust. And then after that, the EDD couldn't touch anything. They couldn't garnish anything. That I'd taken all their teeth away. And then after that, I just stopped fighting them because I knew there was nothing they could do with me, and they couldn't chase me in any way. And then they just sent me some more letters, and then they just went away. But that time period, it opened up so many doors and so many questions and so many curiosities that I decided I was going to keep going down those paths, and I didn't stop at that point.
Interesting. So, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
I didn't really see that stopping was an option for myself or for others. It just kind of like, not only did I not consider it an option, but it's just so goddamn fascinating. I mean, I was electrified. I mean, I was through the roof reading all day, every day, all the time in a dictionary or reading or researching all day, every day for like the whole first year.
Yeah. It consumes you, doesn't it? Like, you're like, no way. And then you just go down this rabbit hole and you find something. And a lot of the stuff that I read, I'd have to reread it like 3 or 4 times because whether it's like case law or Black's Law dictionary or like all the different stuff that I was reading, it's not easy to comprehend, like legalese and all this stuff. It's like, what? And, you know, you read it over and over and over before you can actually get a grasp of what it means. And then it reached a point where after I had done that for so long, I had consumed so much, I thought I had a really good idea of what the heck was going on. And then at that point, I just got consumed with it. And this was about 8 months ago. But yeah. That's crazy. So you talk about like dissolving the trust. Like most people that are watching probably have no idea what that is. Can you describe in layman's terms, or do you touch that at all?
No.
Okay. So
when you were born, and your certificate of live birth was processed by the local health officer at the Department of Health and Human Services. They opened up a legal fiction, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I call it a public corporation. Other people call it a trust. Some people call it an estate. Whatever.
Some people call it a straw man.
Well, it's not that. That's the one thing it's not. But I don't know what it is, but it's not that. Straw man. Okay. If you look up the definition of straw man, that's a third party that holds property in intermission for the sole purpose of transferring it to another. Which does that all caps entity do that? Sometimes, yes. The problem with the word straw man is that does not encompass all of the aspects of what that particular thing can do or could be used for. And by only using that term, it gives the entity a very, very bad name and a very bad rap. But the thing is that entity can be used to have infinite money. That entity can be used to have infinite immunity in commercial activities. That entity can be used for all sorts of really crazy fun purposes. So it's not a straw man. Because if it was a straw man, then it would only have one purpose, which is to hold property in intermission for the sole purpose of transferring it to another, like an escrow.
Okay.
The word straw man and the word escrow are very similar. They're not the same exact term, but they're kind of similar. It's a third party that holds property in intermission for the sole purpose of transferring it to another.
Right.
So,
but is it not true that once that is dissolved, that at some point, at least to my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you know way more about this than I, but when you dissolve that, you can then take control back of everything, the credit and no? Okay.
You can't dissolve it. I wouldn't want to dissolve it. If you dissolve it, you can't operate in commerce.
Right. So I think the Bad Wolf talks about this. For those who don't know James C. Lovett, he says that he keeps his public side open but also operates in the private. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The ability to operate both the private and the public?
Yeah, the definition of the word public means having to do with government, a seat of government. That
Okay.
all caps name is essentially a federal employee. If you look at really, really old Social Security cards from like the late 30s, early 40s, it says employee account number. You can look that up on Google. It's not very hard to find. So what it is there's an employee of the government called Brandon Joe Williams in all caps. The ID number of that person, because the word person includes legal fiction such as estates, trusts, partnerships, associations, companies, and corporations. So if I open up a corporation called Brandon Joe Williams, and I open up an estate called Brandon Joe Williams, and I open up a trust called Brandon Joe Williams, or hell, let's say I open up 4 of each, 4 companies, 4 corporations, 4 trusts, and 4 estates, which you can do very easily, very little money. You could do it in multiple different states. The way the law looks at that is each one of those entities is a different person. So you are a person, and then the 4 different estates, you could have Brandon Joe Williams in all caps 1, Brandon Joe Williams in all caps 2, Brandon Joe Williams in all caps 3, Brandon Joe Williams in all caps 4. That's 4 different persons, and then I'm the 5th person. So if you had 4 estates, 4 companies, 4 corporations, and 4 trusts, plus me, plus 1, you have 13 persons.
Okay.
So the way that I explain status correction, quote unquote, which I don't really consider that at all, is different than everybody else. And like you said, everyone kind of explains it a little differently. The way I explain it is I break it into 2 different categories: identity and location. So I think of identity as playing pieces on the board. If you have 4 trusts, 4 estates, 4 corporations, and 4 companies, and yourself, you have 13 playing pieces on the board, and you can play all of those pieces differently, all 13 of them. It's like living 13 lives. Now, location is extremely simple. Location is the definition in the entire conversation when it comes to location. It's extremely simple. It's the definition of naturalization from 8 USC 1101 subsection A23. And I can do a screen share and I can show it to you.
Yep.
This is the entire conversation of location. So you have your 13 playing pieces. And then the second question is, okay, how do you move those playing pieces around? It's very, very simple. So simple, in fact, that most people don't believe it. And it took me about 60 days after I had read this definition to like really fully accept the idea that this could possibly be true. I went through like a 60-day period where I was just walking around in a daze all day long. I didn't even ride my motorcycle very much because I was just so fucked up that I just couldn't believe that this is true. Okay, so this is they fixed the definitions. Thank God. These weren't clickable for a while, like the past like month.
Yeah, I love Cornell Law School. I use a lot of their references and links. Yeah, like yeah. So like if you look at even, I digress. I'll go to this after.
Yeah, just hold on, because we got location. So we got the 13 playing pieces. Now, how do we locate the playing pieces? This is the answer right here. And you can go off and you can read 947. Now, I had to read and research 900 billion things. If you go back 2 years and start listening to some of my shows, or if you go back to my free course, which is about 2 years old, I didn't know this. And I would go on and on and on, and I would explain all these things and all these things and all these things. And it was true. But over the years, I mean, I've simplified this whole conversation down to 1 sentence. Okay. So this is the entire conversation of location. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. And the definition of the word person is an individual or an organization.
Organization. Yep.
So you have trusts, estates, companies, and corporations, which you've already covered. We have 4 of each. So all 13 of those persons that we have already mentioned at the beginning of the show are either individuals or organizations. So the way that you move those individuals or organizations is literally as simple as just saying that they are located in a specific area, or more specifically, the way that nationality, when you really, really break nationality down, which you can see more here in 21 and 22, the way that nationality, not citizenship, they're totally separate things. They have nothing to do with one another, hardly at all. Nationality specifically, the word that is the linchpin that really determines nationality is the word allegiance. So if you were to reread this, if I were to replace the word state with the word nation, which is actually a lot easier way to describe this, and if I were to replace the word nationality with a pledging of allegiance, and I were to replace the word person with the definition of the word person, you're going to start to get a much simpler understanding of what this means. The term naturalization means the conferring of the pledging of allegiance of a nation upon an individual or organization after birth by any means whatsoever. And now you basically, in one sentence, you've explained location when it comes to its relation to identity in literally one sentence. And you can see proof of that in 22 USC 212. It says here, no passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other reason, any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. Allegiance is the linchpin. Allegiance determines nationality. You can see that here in the definition of the term national, which is not capitalized, by the way. 8 USC 1101 subsection A21, the term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. The word state and the word nation is the same word. And the word allegiance, you could say pledging allegiance. The word permanent, if you look it up, it doesn't mean anything. It's an oxymoron. The term permanent means a relationship of continuing or lasting nature as distinguished from temporary, but a relationship may be permanent even though it is one that may be dissolved eventually at the instance of either the United States or of the individual in accordance with law. So we just removed that word entirely. It's an oxymoron. So if we reread this and we simplify it and we remove all the dumbass words that they put here to kind of trip you up or whatever they're doing, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
The term national means an individual or organization that has pledged allegiance to a nation. That's the definition of the word national. And then if that individual or organization has pledged allegiance to the nation called United States, which is a corporation located in the District of Columbia, which I can really quick, 28 USC 3002 subsection 15. We have here United States means a federal corporation. And then we go to the Uniform Commercial Code 9-307 subsection H. And we have the location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. So if we want to redefine this even farther, the term national means an individual or organization that has pledged allegiance to a nation. Now, when you've pledged allegiance on behalf of, because if you look at naturalization, you're conferring the nationality of a nation upon an individual or organization. It doesn't say upon yourself. You can actually confer the pledging of allegiance upon other people and other persons and other organizations, trusts, estates, partnerships, etc. And for people who don't know much about that, we've got the tax code is my favorite definition of the word person because they actually list each type of organization in a very clear way. 26 USC 7701 subsection A1, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. So what we're looking at here is the term naturalization means the conferring of the pledging of allegiance of any nation upon absolutely any individual or organization on the entire earth, anything you create, anything you make up, anything that already exists after birth by any means whatsoever. That is the actual definition. And that's why I told you It's the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen in all of my research, is the definition of the term naturalization. You could move Starbucks Incorporated into a made up nation that's located on the planet Jupiter. And unless they fight you about it, they legally are literally legally transported to the planet of Jupiter.
I didn't understand how important definitions of terms were until I started to go down this rabbit hole. And it specifically hit me when I was looking into who can be assigned a social security number. And let me pull that up real quick.
The word you and your and all
you.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's person who has a debt, right?
Yeah.
Like here, I'll pull it up.
I can pull it up right now. I literally have that reference right here. I'm actually doing some research on that as we speak. I've done it before, but I'm going back to it. So 20 CFR 422.104. 20, I'll put it up on mine, CFR. And this is from a very highly recommended book, by the way. I'll put it on the screen here. Land of the Free, Home of the Slave, written by Jaleel Bey, who's a really cool dude. He is his Instagram handle is Moorish Lighthouse _official. He used to teach all sorts of different things. Now he has specialized in what's called adverse possession, which is basically like an abandoned property. You can just literally move right in, do a legal process after you move in. People call that squatting. Well, that's false information. You can actually move into any abandoned property anytime you want. There's a legal process that you can do in order to actually gain legal title to the property after you move in. That's called adverse possession. And Jaleel is, in my opinion, by far, I don't know of anyone else teaching it, but even if there were other people teaching it, the way that he teaches, the calm, friendly, highly informative, simplistic manner in which he teaches, I find akin to the way that I teach. And I find it very impressive. And I think that his work is incredible and very empowering. And it's highly recommended by me. This book is a book reference from his book that he wrote called Land of the Free, Home of the Slave, which I'm showing on the screen right now. So on page 23, he actually gives this reference, 20 CFR 422.104. Now, the cool thing about Cornell law is that any special definitions, as you can see on the screen, are clickable, and they have little blue clickable definitions. Now, it's absolutely shocking beyond all belief that the term you, Y-O-U, is blue and clickable. And when you click on this particular word, what's going to come up and what it's going to show you is going to shock you to your core. Persons eligible for SSN assignment. We can assign you a social security number if you meet the evidence requirements in 422.107. Okay, well, unless you knew there was a special definition of the term you wouldn't know there was a special definition of the term you, which is why Cornell Law School is so wonderful, because they connect a lot of these things for you. And you see this blue word with an underline, you go, holy Jesus, and you click on it. And here is the definition of the word you. Now it shows on the upper right the source of the definition. So we were just looking at 20 CFR 422.104. Now, if we were to go online on a new window and type in 20 CFR, which stands for Code of Federal Regulations, by the way, and we were to look at this thing that supposedly comes from this location, and we're going to look at it, and it says here, what special definitions apply to this subpart? And we're going to scroll down, and we have the word debt, we have the word we are, and then we have the word you right here. And the definition of the word you means an individual who owes a debt to the United States within the scope of this subpart. And then we have special definitions for both the word debt as well as the term United States.
So I never clicked on debt. I haven't seen
that's right here.
Gone that far in. Like I know when I click on you, and I know
this is interesting. Look at this. We have debt means any amount of money or property that we determine is owed to the United States and that arises from a program that we administer or an activity that we perform. These debts include program overpayments made under blah, 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 blah. So basically it's whatever the fuck you have that we determine is ours. That's the definition.
And that's really what's like sparked my brain into a frenzy of what in the F is going on, because I read that definition and I was like, well, I was issued my social security number when I was like 4 days old. Like my parents took my certificate of live birth, sent it out, and then I got a social security number back. How could I owe the government a debt when I was just days old, or weeks old, whatever it was, whenever it was that I was issued that number?
So I've been doing research on this actually recently more than ever, and I don't have everything super ultra nailed down. I like to get definitions and exact things and build it all out, and then I have a really strong opinion. This opinion I'm about ready to give you is not the weakest thing in the world, and it's definitely not the strongest thing in the world. It's somewhere in the middle. So the definition of full faith and credit. The other day I was on AI, which I'm not a big fan of AI, but I have been recently using it just for kind of getting like little tidbits of directional information, like where can I even find information on blah, and like it'll give me kind of like a general idea of like this particular act has information on that, and then I'm like, okay, but like I don't go to AI for like hardcore solid answers to anything. I go to it for more like a signpost, basically, right? So full faith and credit. So in 1933, in 1935, in 1933, they removed the gold and silver coins being the backing of the gold certificates and silver certificates of the United States currency or money.
Correct.
Now they replaced that in 1935 with the Social Security Act. And if you look up what is US dollars backed by, they say the full faith and credit of the United States. So I started going down this path fairly recently. What is the full faith and credit of the United States? And AI, blessed soul, I don't know. This is meta AI. I have no idea how accurate this is. Started telling me that the full faith and credit of the United States is based primarily on taxation and the ability to tax, right? And I thought that was really fascinating. I was kind of going down that rabbit hole. I don't know all the details and everything, but if we plugged that idea of the possibility that taxation and the payment of essentially a debtor equals the definition of full faith and credit, then that would make sense why the definition of debt and you is defined this way in Title 20 of the Code of Federal Regulations. But that, like I said, what I'm explaining right now is an uncompleted idea. It's an uncompleted theory based off of some circumstantial evidence that I'm currently working with. A lot of the other stuff that I talk about, such as nationality and naturalization, that's nailed down. That's as real as a rock on the side of the road. This, what we're talking about right here, is a little bit more on the, Brandon's looking into it right now, and I'll have more information probably this year at some point.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. So like one of the things I discovered when I started to go down this rabbit hole was that even the federal government, is there a way I can zoom in? Let me try something. Even the federal government defines your state as
a nationality,
a nation. Yeah, your nationality is your state. So recently, when I just sent in my passport information, I put down my nationality as a Virginian. My nationality is Virginian, and this is defined by the federal government on their websites. And once you start to go down this rabbit hole and you start to see all this stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, man. I've literally been volunteering myself into their system my entire life without knowing this. And I always get the question, well, Fred, why wouldn't everyone do this? Why wouldn't everyone do this? And the only thing I really know to say to people is because we're not taught it. We don't know it. They don't want you to know it. They want you to be part of their little system so they can just control you and keep you where you're at. And
why doesn't everyone start a business? Why doesn't everyone date a supermodel? Why doesn't everyone drive a sports car? Why doesn't everyone have a boat, a yacht? Why doesn't everyone do a lot of things? Why doesn't everyone move to Southern California or move to Texas or move to Florida or move to France or move to Rome or move? Why doesn't everyone go for walks every day to keep themselves at least somewhat in shape and move the body around? Why doesn't anyone practice breathing exercises in order to, or light gentle meditation and just spending a little bit of time, maybe 5-10 minutes with themselves every morning? Why don't people wake up in the morning and think about their goals and their aspirations and their identity and clarify their day? for 3 minutes before they start their day, or maybe do that in the evening before they sleep. Why don't people, I can go on, and I can why don't people you until you literally put a gun in your mouth and pull the trigger and kill yourself.
Right. Well, why would someone want to do this? What are some of the benefits of correcting your status or living in the private? I guess some people say it that way. What are the benefits of that? I mean, the biggest question is, can you still vote? Like, are you able to vote? And I've heard a couple different answers on this. You can, yes, still vote. I'm not sure of what process you have to go through. I think there's a different process. I don't know. I'll let you try to answer that. I don't know. What would be the benefit of someone who would want to go through this process, or to enlighten themselves and to educate themselves on this?
So voting, when you realize that an estate, a trust, a corporation, a company, a partnership, and associations are all persons in the law, then you'll realize that the Social Security number is basically an EIN number for a business. That is your name in all capital letters. That business is a person. It's not a straw man. Yes, it may operate sometimes as a straw man or escrow, but that does not complete the entire definition and the entire idea. The definition of the word definition, it means boundaries. What are the boundaries of the meaning of a series of symbols would be the definition of the term definition. To say that the definition of the all caps trade name is a straw man would be a definition that would create boundaries that are way, way, way tighter than what the reality really is. The reality is it has many different uses and many different functions. And it being a third party that holds property in intermission for the sole purpose of transferring it to another is one tiny little aspect of the overall portfolio that this particular ens legis, which means creature of the law, it does or is responsible for or can function as. So the thing is that is a misnomer of gross proportions. That's like calling a car a pear and orange transportation device. Does a car do more than transport oranges and pears?
Of course. So if you were to call a car an orange and pear transport device, that's the same as calling the ens legis a straw man.
Yeah,
it's just one aspect of what it does.
One tiny thing that the ens legis does is it allows for there to be a third party to transfer property into it or using it to transfer property for the sole purpose of transferring it to another person. Now, if you look up the definition of the word attorn, ATTORN, which obviously the word attorney comes from, the word attorn also means to transport assets or property from one person to another. So the word straw man and the word attorn or attorney and the word escrow, those three terms actually have very, very similar meanings. So if you really wanted to know a few terms that are all married together, you have attorn or attorney, you have the word straw man, and you have the word escrow. Now, those three terms mean the same thing, but they're totally separate from the all caps name. The all caps name has nothing to do with any of that. It's just a small, teeny, tiny little function. It's the ability to transport oranges and pears. That's what that particular function is when it comes to the all caps name. The all caps name can create currency. The all caps name can transport securities. It can create securities. The all caps name gives you limited liability in commerce the same way that if someone was molested in a Starbucks, the CFO or the CEO is not going to get charged with the crime because they have limited liability through the commercial activity of a corporate entity. There's all these different aspects to what that all caps ens legis actually does, this creature of the law, that is very, very beneficial and very, very excellent and very, very useful, well above and beyond the idea of being a third party that can hold property for the sole purpose of transporting it to another.
So, man, there's so much here to go over and to talk through. I want to shift, if we can, real quick to the video that you have on your Twitter where you talk about, let me see if I can pull it up. For some reason, I cannot get X or Twitter to open on my desktop. I keep having, it just keeps refreshing over and over. I don't know why it's doing that. Is there a way to pull up that video? Let me see here. Are you able to pull that video up? Let's see, and then I can share it.
Sure. I mean, I'm
stop
gonna
screen. Or and if you don't want to, could you talk a little bit about what you're talking about in that with money and becoming your own creditor and the lies that we're told with the way money works now?
Yeah. So the
I wish I could get this up. I don't know why my everything else is working, but for some reason X. Let me try x.com. Into Google and then Twitter.
I'm also looking for something. Give me just 1 second here.
Yeah, no problem, brother. Oh, I may have got it here. Let's see. @ underscore. Next. Alrighty, quotes. Log in. Oof, code. Oh, here we go. Okay. Whew, I got it to pull up. That was weird. I don't know why that was not pulling up. All right, and then Brandon Williams. One stupid fuck. Real quick, if you're watching and you are not following Brandon Joe Williams yet, I'm going to post his handle here at @1_ stupid_ fuck. And make sure you follow him on Twitter. And are you an attorney?
Yes.
Very cool. So one of the things that I've seen in some of my research is that attorneys, if you go to court or you have to go to court and you hire an attorney, you're essentially entering into their jurisdiction by admitting you don't understand the law. And please, like I said, you probably know way more about this than I do. Just kind of hoping you can give some clarification on this, that when you hire an attorney, you're essentially saying, I'm ignorant to the law and this person's just going to guide me on what I need to do in your jurisdiction. You take an oath to the bar, correct? So an attorney, I believe their first obligation is to the bar and then to the client, or the client ends up somewhere down the line, I believe. I don't understand. That's just something that I read. Is there any truth to that at all?
So there's two different types of attorney. There's an attorney at law and there's an attorney in fact. It's a whole thing that for whatever reason, even most of the bar card attorneys, or actually really all of the bar card attorneys, don't have a clue. The way that it works is that if you take on an attorney at law, if you look up the word client from Corpus Juris Secundum, it's defined as one who applies to a lawyer. Clients are also called, quote, wards of the court, end quote. Mm-hmm. Then you look up wards of court and you look at the definition, and the definition is infants and persons of unsound mind. So when you take on an attorney at law, you become a ward of the court. A ward of the court is an infant or person of unsound mind. An infant or person of unsound mind essentially becomes the property of the court. An attorney at law is essentially given permission through their bar card membership to administer the property of the court. Now, there's an entirely different type of attorney called an attorney in fact, which is a contract-based attorney. So it's literally just an attorney where you write up a private contract and the attorney gets power of attorney. You write up a private contract called a power of attorney, and you write it up however you want, and you can actually retain all of your rights when you write up a power of attorney. And you can tell the person who you're giving power of attorney, and you can write in the power of attorney all of the exact and specific rights they do or do not have. Typically, there's 3 types of power of attorney. You have a durable power of attorney, which operates even if you become emotionally or mentally unstable or deceased. You have a normal power of attorney, which operates typically up until that point, and then it gets voided. And then you have a limited power of attorney, which only gives specific and exact sectors of power to the individual. So let's say, for example, only banking and finance. So let's say, for example, only the power to assist in transferring real property. Or let's say, for example, only the ability to draft legal letters that speak on my behalf informally, or whatever. It could be anything you can dream up.
Right.
So once you have a power of attorney with another individual, they become the attorney in fact. For example, even when you go to the DMV and you get a certificate of title or something like that, you are actually, if you read the documentation very carefully, especially when you're registering a vehicle for the first time, it'll say right on there that you are giving power of attorney, and then you sign over power of attorney. Basically what you're doing is you're giving the DMV the right to behave and act on your behalf if it has anything to do with this asset called the vehicle. So I operate not as an attorney at law because I do not administer property of the court known as infants or retards. I am a strictly contract-based counsel.
Interesting.
So I do not represent people in the court system. I assist other people in presenting themselves. Big difference. Huge.
Very cool.
Like Grand Canyon between the two ideas.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
And that's the breakdown. And I have all that information on my WilliamsandWilliamsLawFirm.com.
Very cool. So
in the questions and answers section, there's a very, very, very extensive breakdown as to how all that works, and references and definitions and all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, Jay-Z says only allegiance to the client and not the court.
So the way that it works, if you look up officer of the court, if you look up the definition of officer of the court, the actual definition states that there's 3 levels of allegiance, 1 being the highest level of allegiance, 2 being the second most, 3 being third in line. Allegiance number 1 is to the court. Allegiance number 2 is to the public. Allegiance number 3 is to the client. And that's the way that an officer of the court or attorney at law operates on behalf of their client.
Yeah. Yep. Man, that's crazy. Okay, back over to the infinite money video, because I think this would pique a lot of people's interest. And I've been down this path, and I'm trying to go through this process, and I'm trying to understand as much as I possibly can. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of people in this community that I'm a part of that don't have any idea about any of it. So having you on, just being able to touch on a few things, there might be people tuning in. Maybe they're going to catch a piece of it later. Maybe I'm going to take clips out of it. I'm just going to try to burst out as much information because I think everybody needs to know about it. I wish I would have known about it much sooner. I heard about it a while ago, probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and it's very political around here. And how I got into crypto, I was in libertarian communities here. I was a big Ron Paul guy. it's when Pork Fest really had just first started and all this other stuff. And there was a big libertarian community here in the DC area. And I heard people speaking about it then, but I was like, it doesn't sound right. It's probably too good to be true. And I just kind of put it aside. I was like, this is bullshit. It's not real. And then obviously here we are 15 years later and we're talking about it, but the more I learned about it, the deeper and deeper I went down the hole. But there are people in this community who have no idea about what it is. So if we could just touch on a few things, we've touched on some really good stuff, but how to have infinite money in less than 10 minutes. So you have a 10-minute video on your page. It's the pinned tweet. Everybody, when we're done with this, you should go over and watch this. If you haven't subscribed, you need to subscribe and follow Brandon Joe Williams. I put his handle in here. Go watch this video. It's really very, very interesting. How does that work? So if I have a car note, can I watch your video and understand the process, at least to a point where I can go and start to work through it to where I can then become the creditor of that car note and I can take over and just essentially make payments to myself if I wanted to? Or how does that work?
It's not a short road. It's not an easy road. It requires litigation.
Yeah.
At this point in time in the civilization that we currently live in, you will need to aggressively litigate in order to get this particular thing done. After enough people have litigated and enough people have successfully gotten this completed and bashed the head in of the financial organizations and forced them to actually follow what's very, very clear in the law. Definition of law being the Uniform Commercial Code. It's not really law. It's code. It's legal, but it is the rule book that essentially controls the monopoly game of which we are playing in the commercial world. So when I say the word law, many people get upset. I don't say that in the purest form. I say it in the subjective form. We're in the middle of a game of which that game may not be something that people want to play or agree with. But the thing is that it doesn't change the fact that we are in. You can argue with the fact that you're on a boat in the ocean, but there hits a certain point where you kind of have to just wake up and realize, wow, I'm on a boat in the ocean. So when I say law, it's from that sort of mentality or emotional stance. But the idea of it is that these things that you have in your wallet, they aren't money. If you look at the definition of money, money is gold and silver coins and does not embrace notes, bills, or other evidences of debt. That's straight out of the dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary. If you look in, I believe it's UCC 3-102. 3-102. Yeah. If you look at UCC 3-102, it says literally in black and white. I'll do a screen share. That, and people are so shocked by this, and it couldn't be, and you're a sovereign citizen, and la 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 la. It's like it's literally all I hear anymore. All I hear anymore is just I don't have the emotional capacity to handle this, and I'm going to lash out in a defensive mechanism. Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So ego. A lot of ego. Oh, I heard this on TV and it must be right. And this is who you are. You're crazy. And I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to pretend like I do because I don't have the emotional intelligence to dig deeper.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's literally just like putting a revolver in your mouth and pulling the trigger. As far as I'm concerned, that's basically all it is. I just laugh at it anymore. So if you look at UCC 3-102, it says here, it's very clear. This article applies to negotiable instruments. It does not apply to money.
So everything is a negotiable instrument.
Yes.
Since it's not backed by gold or silver.
Well, when you read UCC 3, it says that negotiable instruments operate the same as and are credited as though they are gold and silver coins, but they are not.
Okay.
Literally almost exactly word for word what it says. So what it is it's like having how would I describe this? It's like having a piece of paper that is not a title to your car, but gives you the right to possess and operate your car, basically. which actually is the definition of a certificate of title, a pink slip, by the way. I'm not going to get into all that, but that's actually the definition. But the whole idea is it's not money, but it operates as if you are giving money when you give it to someone. When you read into the UCC Article 3 in great detail, it literally covers that, where it's like you aren't giving anyone money, but the discharge that occurs when you give someone these things is the same as if you had given them money. That's
Right.
the wording of it, right? So negotiable instrument is defined in UCC 3-104, UCC 3-104. The word instrument means deed or contract or title or whatever. It's very, very, very simple. Contract, very, very simple term, very, very generic term. Negotiable means transferable from person to person to person. It has value and it can be transferred. Basically, is the word negotiable, right? So, negotiable instruments is very, very simple. It's a very, very simple subject that has become such a complicated thing, and people are upset by it and they're emotional about it. And there's all this chaos. Negotiable instrument only means two things, and it can actually mean both at the same time, which you learn about in UCC Article 3. If it's both at the same time, then whoever it is that's basically controlling it at that time can operate it or use it as either one, however they want. So it can be one or the other, or technically both at the same time. But it can only be one or both of only two things: an unconditional promise to pay, which is also called a promissory note. The word note is short for promissory note. And the word promissory note and the terms unconditional promise, it's all the same thing. Note, promissory note, and unconditional promise all mean the same thing. It's all the same thing. That's number one. So negotiable instruments, you have the word negotiable instruments, and then you have two lines that come down from negotiable instruments. One of those lines that come down, it says unconditional promise / promissory note / note. That's the first category. Okay. Category number 2 is unconditional order to pay. So that one would be a line that comes down and it would say unconditional order to pay / bill of exchange / bill. So saying the series of words unconditional order to pay, or saying the term bill of exchange, or saying the single word, which is a shortening of the one I just said, just saying the word bill also means the same thing. It's all the same terminology.
Okay.
So category 1 is unconditional promise / promissory note / note. Category number 2 is unconditional order to pay / bill of exchange / bill. And that covers everything under the sun, moon, and stars that could possibly be classified as what's called a negotiable instrument. The Federal Reserve notes that are in your wallet, because it has the word note in it, means automatically, without question and without the necessary desire to further investigate the situation, it instantaneously classifies that particular negotiable instrument in category number 1, which is the unconditional promise / promissory note / note category. The definition of the word bill, when you receive something in the mail and it says pay, like for example, your phone bill, it says pay $97 by October 28th. That is an unconditional order to pay, and that document is a negotiable instrument, and that document has the same value in law as promissory notes, such as Federal Reserve notes, which is why when they send you the bill, the amount that quote is quote owed is always a positive balance. It's never a negative balance. When you're looking at a bill of exchange or an unconditional order to pay, you are looking at a deposit account no different than your checking or savings account, of which has a particular positive balance. What they're actually asking you is they're saying, hey, we have this positive balance in this checking account. We need to do something with it by this date. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. That's what they're actually saying to you. So when you look at the definition of the word payment, the definition of the word payment means to perform on a duty, obligation, or contract. So the word performance and the word payment mean the same thing. The way that you perform on a negotiable instrument is called endorsing. And it's a whole technology. It's all through UCC Article 3. So if we go into UCC Article 3, we have all these different subsections. And several of the subsections have to do with negotiation. Negotiation means transferability, exchangeability, or redeemability of an instrument. That's very, very important. Negotiation subject to rescission. A lot of information about that. Now, the way that an instrument is negotiated or transferred or redeemed, it's all the same terminology, is through this term called endorsements. Endorsement means a signature. And we can just skip all this because we're not going to get into all this right now. We're just going to keep it simple. Endorsement means a signature that alone or accompanied by other words is made on an instrument for the purpose of, let's see if we can find an easier definition than this. Hold on. I remember there was an easier definition. We're going to go to UCC 8-102 subsection 11. And we're going to find a much simpler definition of this. Means a signature that alone or accompanied by other words is made on a negotiable instrument. Just skip all these words. We're just going to say negotiable instrument, or on a separate document for the purpose of assigning, transferring, or redeeming the security, or granting a power to assign, transfer, or redeem it. So if we were to reread this and simplify it, it's just a series of things that can be written, whatever, on an instrument, that are either on the instrument itself or on a separate document attached to the instrument. And what you're doing is you're just writing on the instrument information involving the assigning, transferring, or redeeming of that particular instrument. So what you're doing is that the word negotiation means transferability. An endorsement is the wording written on the instrument, preparing it and allowing it to be negotiated or transferred. So you can write on the instrument, this instrument can only go to blah for blah purpose. That would actually be legally an endorsement. You'll see things written on checks such as for deposit only. For deposit only is an endorsement. It's actually a special kind of endorsement called a restrictive endorsement. A restrictive endorsement restricts the assigning, transferring, or redeeming of the security. For deposit only. It means you can't do other shit with this. You can only deposit it. That is called, if you go back into UCC 3, UCC Article 3, you'll see there's a whole section on restrictive endorsements, and that's all they're talking about. Restrictive endorsements is endorsements, so signatures or other things written that restrict negotiability. Restrictive endorsement, 3-206. Restrictive endorsement is an endorsement limiting payment to a particular person or otherwise prohibiting the transfer or negotiation of the instrument, is not effective to prevent. Anyways, there's that first part. I don't know that second part I have to look at more. So just that first part is all you need. An endorsement limiting payment or performance, same word. Payment and performance mean the same thing. People think payment means to send in Federal Reserve notes. That is like clown car level hilarious. That's like Bozo the fucking clown honking horns and jumping up and down, and there's ball throwing, and there's a seal on top of a beach ball, and like the whole thing. Clown car
What
with 16 clowns in it. That's not what payment means. Payment
what else does payment mean?
Payment means performance. Period. End of story. Endorsing the instrument is performing on the instrument. So endorsing the instrument by definition means you're paying the instrument. Payment and performance and endorsement all mean the same motherfucking thing. You can say endorsement / performance / payment. It all means the same thing. Writing on the face of the instrument in order to perform on the instrument is a payment. And a lot of the banks and stuff like that are saying that they don't accept this kind of payment and blah, blah. That's all false. That's all litigation. You can sue them for more money than you've ever imagined, and you'll win every single time. They cannot reject an endorsement as non-performance. It's physically and legally impossible.
So when you say endorsement, I could literally take a copy of the contract or whatever. Say you buy a car. And I take a copy of that and I write something on it and I send them that as my payment.
Yes.
It's literally that simple.
If you have an unconditional promise to pay or an unconditional order to pay, then you can perform on that instrument. So let's say there's a mortgage and the mortgage says that you promise to pay for 30 years at 5% interest, blah, 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 blah. That document that they just slid across the table for you to quote unquote sign, you're not signing it, you're endorsing it. That document right then and there is a promissory note and you are endorsing. So at that moment, when you quote unquote sign the mortgage documentation, you are placing a signature that alone or accompanied with other words on a security certificate or on a separate document for the purpose of assigning, transferring, or redeeming that security, or you are granting the power to whoever you're giving the document to for them to assign, transfer, or redeem the document. That's what you're doing. You don't realize you're doing that. And what's funny is they don't either. That's the funny part. But that is what you're doing. That document is a promissory note, no different than a Federal Reserve note. So like if you look at a Federal Reserve note, let's say we look at like a $20 Federal Reserve note. Okay. Or here, it's $10. So here's a $10 Federal Reserve note. Okay. So let's say that this is actually just a contract. It's a contract between two parties, the United States or United States Treasury and the Federal Reserve. And you can see that back where we saw the location of the United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia, UCC 9-307H. Here we go. We have location of the United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. If you look at a Federal Reserve note, if it is a promissory note, that means there's a debtor and a creditor, right? Well, look at the name of the title of 9-307. You see that? Oh, I think you're muted.
So, and this is why they will never make the District of Columbia a state, because they don't want it to be a state. They want it to remain as the corporation.
It cannot ever physically be. It's a physical impossibility. That can never happen. Any talks of the District of Columbia becoming a state, that's just a clown show. That's just some bozo clown shit. It can't happen. It's physically, legally, physically impossible for that. In 8 trillion years from now, it's still going to be physically, legally, morally, spiritually impossible for the District of Columbia to become a state.
It's funny because in this community, there are people who moved out of the United States to avoid certain laws and tax laws and stuff like that. And they went to Puerto Rico. And what they failed to understand is that when they moved to one of the jurisdictions of the federal government or the territories, they actually lock themselves into the laws as if they were living in the District of Columbia and not a national of the state that they are in. So,
if you're in one of the 50 states, you can just very easily flip over onto the original nation state side of the equation. If you move to
correct.
Puerto Rico, you no longer have that option because you're on a U.S. territory. You aren't in the United
Yeah.
States of America anymore. So the way that
Yes.
North America is structured is you have two different countries. You have the United States of America, and then you have the United States.
Yep.
United States is basically like one super state called District of Columbia, and then you have sub-states underneath that super state. Those sub-states are things like Guam, Puerto Rico, etc. I don't know all of them.
American
and then you
Samoa
have
or something like that.
and then you have American Samoa and the Virgin Islands, which is like they're sort of like U.S. territories, but they're also kind of not. That's like a whole nother system, but it is kind of more or less underneath that system, but it's a whole different ball game than Guam and Puerto Rico. If you wanted American Samoa and the Virgin Islands, that's why all the crazy psychos go to Virgin Islands, like all the big political hitmen and all that are in the Virgin Islands, because the Virgin Islands is a whole different structure in terms of how that works. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the Virgin Islands, I forget. I need to look at it again, but anyways, it's a whole different,
It's different from even like Puerto Rico or District of Columbia.
Yes.
Interesting.
So the safest place you could be is in one of the 50 states, but the thing is you have to clean things up in order to actually be there. The problem is that everyone is domiciled in the legal or the lawful original unincorporated state of, let's say, California, but because of their contracts, they're a resident of the District of Columbia, meaning they live there temporarily. So basically everyone in America lives in wherever they live, but on paper, they are temporarily a resident in the District of Columbia, and they live that way their whole life. That's actually on paper. That's the way it works. And that's why if you look at the Internal Revenue Code, the words resident alien and non-resident alien always have the word alien in them, because if you look up the definitions of the words and you go on a deep dive, no one who is a resident of District of Columbia actually domiciles there. They're just there temporarily. Basically, the way that the government and the way the tax code is written, everyone is either on vacation or on a business trip in the District of Columbia. Forever.
Yeah,
their whole life.
It's wild. I want to pull something up here. Let me see if I can scroll in just a little bit and share this. And this is great. And if you don't follow the Bad Wolf, James C. Lovett, anyone who's watching, make sure you follow him as well on YouTube. Let's do the share screen. I received some of this information by him, but I didn't realize there's so many different, which one is it? Do I want to share this one? Let me just open with Google Docs so then it's not blasting my email information everywhere. Open. Okay, here we go. Zoom in and share screen. Affidavit of no SSN. Share. So, declared to be a national of the United States of America, Republic. The term national of the United States means A, a citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance, like we were talking about earlier, to the United States of America, 8 U.S.C. subsection 1102B22, by means of certificate of live birth, authenticated birth certificate, family Bible, sworn elder family, or USA passport, or etc. So there, and I tell this to people all the time, when you're born in a state, you're born with dual citizenship. You are born as a citizen of that state and of that nationality. So if you're born in Texas, you are a Texas national, it's your nationality, and you can opt into the federal citizenship as well. And I have more documents that show that.
That's actually really simple. That's actually really simple to show. Let me do another screen share.
Yeah.
All
But
you got to
so, and I tell
do.
that to people, and they're like, "No, no, you're just an American citizen." And again, it comes to like the emotional intelligence to
It's
be
very
able to
no, it's
understand.
very very easy. You're going to show them 8 USC 1401. It says here,
Yep,
nationals and citizens of the United States at birth. The following shall be nationals and citizens of the United States at birth, and it gives the details as to how that works. And then you're going to
not
show
or,
them, and then
and
you're going to show them 8 USC 1408. This one is called nationals but not citizens of the United States at birth. Unless otherwise provided in section 1401 of this title, the following shall be nationals but not citizens of the United States at birth. You're also going to show them the I-9 form. This is a form they fill out whenever they have like a decent sized job, and you're going to show them box 1 and box 2 of the I-9. Box 1 is a citizen of the United States. Box 2 is a non-citizen national of the United States. Then you're going to show them 8 USC 1101, the one you just talked about in that document, subsection A22, which we were over here earlier, but we didn't get into 22 yet. You're going to see 22 is, give me just a moment to find 22. Here it is. The term national of the United States. And again, national means a individual or organization that has pledged allegiance to a nation. So if you've pledged allegiance to the nation called United States, which is a corporation located in the District of Columbia and is a debtor to a foreign organization called the Federal Reserve Bank, if you have pledged allegiance to that particular nation, which is located only and exclusively somewhere, unknown where, inside of the District of Columbia, you become what's called a national, or someone who's pledged allegiance to a nation, national of the nation called United States. The definition of national of the United States means one of two things. A citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. Then you're going to show them 22 CFR 51.2, and you're going to see that passports, the name of the goddamn thing is called passport issued to nationals only. And then you're going to scroll down and you're going to see here, a passport may be issued only to a U.S. national, which is the exact same term as the one we just read. National of the United States and U.S. national mean exactly the same thing. Now, you have this other term, a non-citizen national of the United States. The term non-citizen national of the United States is referring only and exclusively to subsection B of 8 USC 1101 subsection A22, which is a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. So a U.S. national or national of the United States could mean A or B, whereas a non-citizen national of the United States is a more specific and exact way of saying only subsection B, not including subsection A of the term U.S. national or national of the United States. Then you're going to show them 22 USC 212, which is who is entitled to a passport, persons entitled to passport. No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance. Here we go. Here's the kicker.
whether citizens or not,
to the United States.
Yep.
So you hit them with it's not a 1-2 punch. It's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 punch. And they're knocked out. TKO every time. TKO.
I have like a tab. I have a tab open in my Google browser on my phone, and it's got about 8 or 9 of the Cornell Law tabs open. So I do that. I'm just like, boom, here, boom, 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 boom. And I just go down the list. And I'm like, okay, like you're entitled to your opinion, but if you're not going to back it up with something. And man, another thing that I discovered on this trip that I've been on is that the federal corporation within the District of Columbia then went to each of the states and incorporated each of the states. So, for example, like you have the state of Tennessee, the state of Virginia, the state of California. Those are all daughter companies or sister companies or whatever underneath the main daughter companies under the corporation of the United States, which
Yes,
is
and where do you
crazy.
think, if United States is located in the District of Columbia, where do you think state of California, of which is a daughter corporation
Yep.
of the corporation called United States,
Yeah.
where do you think state of California is located?
It's not in California. It's definitely within the District of Columbia.
Precisely. And what is the definition of naturalization?
Ooh, I don't know.
It's the one we looked at earlier. Most important, in my opinion, one of the most important definitions of all of law. It's the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So when you confer the nationality of the state or nation or business called State of California upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever, you are naturalizing into where?
The District of Columbia.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Whew. We're going to clip that. That was a really good clip. Like that whole section right there. That's going to just hit people and really open up a lot of minds, man. And so, you know, who are your state taxes paid to? The state of Virginia, the state
Well, if you look at
Texas,
Dun and Bradstreet, all of these state of Texas, state of Utah, state of Oklahoma, state of Florida, they're all on there listed as businesses.
Mm-hmm.
This is not some huge catastrophic conspiracy secret. This is literally broadcasted and openly published on the open internet for anyone to look at. So go on Dun and Bradstreet, which is a business directory, and type in state of California, state of Utah, state of this, state of that. They have Dun and Bradstreet listings and Dun and Bradstreet numbers, D&B numbers. So the thing is that you are conferring the nationality of a business of which is located in the District of Columbia upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever, which means that you are willingly and openly, without anyone putting a gun to your head, naturalizing into the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is not a part of the United States of America. Only people who are in the United States of America have things like the Second Amendment, the right to travel, etc. Right. So the thing is that people get so upset and they talk about driving versus traveling and the right to travel. If you've naturalized into the District of Columbia, you don't have the right to travel. You voluntarily waived that right.
Yeah. People are like, well, how are they getting away with all this? What are they doing? Well, it's simple. You volunteered into their system. You entered into their, you don't have any rights other than what they give you.
That's precisely correct.
When you go into that system.
That's precisely correct. And if you look up,
and they're like, well, how can they do this? How can they do that?
I found literally case law. The only unmitigated right that a U.S. citizen has, which is somebody who has conferred the nationality of the state called United States upon themselves after birth by any means whatsoever. The only right that a naturalized U.S. citizen has is the right to reside inside of the United States. And the problem is that yes, the United States is located in the District of Columbia, but I've never seen any additional information as to where the actual delineation of this sub-state of District of Columbia called United States is actually physically located. So even though you have the right to reside in the United States, you could be in the District of Columbia, but not even know if you're actually in the United States or not. So what rights do you actually have? You have one right as a U.S. citizen: to reside in an unknown location. That unknown location is located inside of the District of Columbia. That's the only right you have. You have no right to a firearm. You have no right to an arm. You have no right to transport yourself. You don't even have the right to pursue happiness. You see that in the Constitution, I believe it is, or the Bill of Rights, the right to pursue the right to for freedom and pursuit of happiness. You don't have that right either. Life, you don't have any of those rights. Correct. And the thing is that people get upset. But the thing is that you have the infinite capacity to declare any right to be your own. If you look at the Ninth Amendment is the most powerful and the simplest, and also the one that no one talks about. People are talking about the Second Amendment. Dude, the Second Amendment is like literally like a rotting, tiny fragment of an egg that's like in a sewer drain pipe, and it's been there for like 400 years compared to the Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment says the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's the whole goddamn thing. It's a sentence long. Now, what that means is just because the Constitution didn't specifically say that you can fly a plane and get drunk and shoot machine guns out the side of the window does not mean that it's an automatic assumption that you cannot do that of which has not been mentioned. The Ninth Amendment is like the fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger of all the Constitution. It's like the Rambo of the Constitution. So you sit here, people, oh, the Second Amendment, you can have it, bro. I don't even need the Second Amendment. I don't care. Take it. I have no desire to fight with you about the Second Amendment. But when I pull the Ninth Amendment, it's like I just cyclops laser beamed your body into dust particles. You don't stand a chance against the Ninth Amendment.
Bro, you are just dropping so much knowledge, dude. This is so dope. I'm just getting clip after clip after clip after clip. This is so good, dude. Yeah. So good. So where do people start? Like, it's such one of the things that took me so long. So met a guy, started talking about stuff. He was giving me information and it was overwhelming. I didn't know where to start. I was scared to make the first step because I didn't want to do something incorrectly. I didn't want to do something wrong. I didn't want to get myself in trouble. So I tried to learn as much as I possibly could. And I went and got my certificates of live birth. And then I had them authenticated in the state that I live in by the Secretary of the Treasury, or who was it? Oh, no, the Secretary of State here in Virginia. And then I sat on them for a long time because I really wasn't sure what next step I should take. I was getting a lot of different information from all these different people. And some people said, oh, you don't even have to do that. Oh, you don't even have to do that. And then there were people who wanted to charge like $2,000 to show me what to do or $4,000 for them to do it. And I was like, I know all these other people who got through it. But it was really overwhelming. And it took me a year. It took me a year to get to the point where I felt comfortable enough to apply for my passport with my certificates of live birth that have been authenticated by the state. And I eventually sent those off to the State Department. The State Department authenticated those for non-Hague country, boom, 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 whatever. I got that all set up. But there's just so much to do, and there's so many different processes. Where should people start? What should they do?
I mean, the easiest and lowest risk thing, if you want to start there, some people like to come out guns blazing. I mean, if you want to come out guns blazing, there's lots of options. If you want the quietest and simplest and easiest and most rewarding thing as your first step is to unsubscribe from federal income tax. That takes about 5 minutes, and you will never ever have any issues. They never check, they never do anything. They literally instantaneously comply every single time. They never call you, they never send you. It's the easiest. It's literally as easy to unsubscribe from federal income tax as it is to unsubscribe from Netflix. Actually, it might be easier.
Is this the revocation of election?
It's the revocation of election, but the thing is, there's a lot of different types of elections of which you can revoke. This specific election of which you revoke is called the revocation of election to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purpose of determining your income tax liability. That is the exact full word-for-word terminology, and you can see that at 26 CFR 1.871-1 subsection A.
Bro, I can't wait until I have all of this knowledge retained to the point where I can just regurgitate it to people the way that you do. That's so good. I have it saved in my phone, so I know where to find it now after a year and a half of going through it. So it's like, okay, here, okay, what is it? Okay, here it is. But I have to look it up still.
So in the same way that you naturalized into state of California, the way that the tax code translates naturalization, in my opinion, naturalization and election is the same thing. So in Title 8, you naturalized into a state. In Title 26, the tax code, you elected to be treated as a U.S. resident. So the thing is that if you say you live in the U.S. and you're not living in the District of Columbia, the way that the tax code translates that is you volunteered to be treated as though you live in the District of Columbia for the purpose of determining your income tax liability. So they call it an election. So that election is the same idea as naturalization. That election can be revoked at any point in time. The action of revoking that election or voluntary sign up or volunteering is called a revocation of election. And that specific election of which you are revoking, if you were to say the full terminology, is revocation of election to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purpose of determining your income tax liability.
So is this a form that you fill out? Is it the 5768?
Just an
Just
affidavit.
an affidavit.
The
And what
definition
would
of the
you
word
do?
affidavit is a document that has been sworn under penalty of perjury. That's the definition. It's very simple. People affidavit, they go crazy and they don't know. Very, very simple. It's a document of which you have sworn under penalty of perjury to its truthfulness. The definition of penalty of perjury is if it's ever proven to be false. And the thing is, in order for it to be perjury per the definition, you have to have known it was false when you said it. So it's very difficult to prosecute someone for perjury because they have to know that the information they placed on the document is untruthful. If I knew Jane was at the bar at 7 p.m. on October 13th, and later on there's a court case and they bring up evidence and that shows that I was there on a fucking TV screen and they have evidence that I was there at the same time and I knew she was there, but I had previously filed an affidavit stating that under penalty of perjury, no, Jane was not at that bar at 7 p.m. You can face up to 1 year in prison plus other monetary fines. So willful and knowing lying is the definition of the word perjury. The definition of affidavit is a document that's signed under penalty of perjury. You're sticking your neck out and you're saying, I believe in this so thoroughly and I'm willing to put my neck on the chopping block. Affidavits are very powerful evidentiary things in a court case because they're basically like, a declaration is the term that's used to say something that's not under a penalty of perjury. A declaration is not anywhere near as much weight in a courtroom as an affidavit. The way that the court looks at it is if you're willing to stick your neck out, then the value of that particular declaration goes up dramatically. That document is called an affidavit.
So with that affidavit, you can probably Google and research and find what you would need to say specifically. Once you get that done, you probably get it notarized, right?
An affidavit, to be an affidavit, must be notarized. The definition of notarization is that someone who basically is operating as an attorney in fact or agent for the Secretary of State. So it's as if the Secretary of State themselves is sitting there with you. That's how it's viewed in law. The Secretary of State is essentially the way it works in law is the Secretary of State themselves is sitting there with you, and they have two jobs. Job number one is to verify your identity. And then once they have completed verifying your identity, they physically watch this body of which they have verified the identity of, take the actual physical pen and physically sign the document. So what's happening is that I, on behalf of the Secretary of State, have verified this person's identity to the best of my ability thoroughly, and I have verified that the terminology of the notary paper matches with local laws, and I have physically witnessed on behalf of the Secretary of State that this person of which I have identified is the same person who physically signed documentation. It's a very simple thing. Most notaries don't even know that definition. So you have these notaries and they're going through documents and they're reading the documents and they're saying like, oh, I can't sign. That's all horseshit. If you ever have any notary that's going through your documents or reading your documents or giving you ideas, that's actually illegal. That's actually practicing law without a license. They can actually get in serious trouble. You can actually report them. That's not their job.
Yeah,
Their
that
job is
happened to me when I was doing my passport paperwork about a month ago, and I went to my bank to get the notary, and he was like, "What is this saying?" And I'm like, "It doesn't matter. Your job is just to witness me signing it, bro."
that's
And he
all.
was like, "You're right."
If, if
I was
they
like, "Yeah,
say
come correct."
if you have a notary, because a lot of the banks do this because they're fucking retarded and they get told we're all sovereign citizens. If you ever have a banker notary and they ever tell you a fucking thing about your documents, you just smile, you look at them and you go, "Oh, excuse me. Are you my attorney in fact? Are you attempting to practice law without a license?" And you can say it kind of nice and you will shut them down hard as fuck because they'll know what that means.
Yeah.
They'll know
Yeah.
what that means.
As soon as I said that, he was like, yep, you're right. Sorry. Doom stamp sign. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, let's
Now,
go.
you don't
Let's
want to
go.
be a dick. You don't want to be a dick.
Yeah.
If you're an asshole, they'll just everyone has the right to say no to anything.
Of
We don't
course,
live in
of
a rape
course.
culture. Okay, people may think we
Yeah.
do. So the thing is that they can just say fuck you. I'm not notarizing this.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Get out. And
Yep.
you can't fight that because the thing is that if you fight against that, you're fighting against everything that America is structured on. Everyone has the right to tell anyone to go fuck themselves anytime, pretty much. And then from there we have the litigation system. And if you feel that there was a contractual obligation that they failed to deliver, then now you're suing for damages for breach of contract. And like, that's all after the fact. But anyone can tell anyone to go fuck themselves for any reason. And that's the way America is. And I love that about America. So the thing is that if you treat them like shit, or if you're aggressive or you're mean, anyone can at any point in time pull the fuck you get out card. And there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, that's the spinal cord of all of America. I have a lot of people who come to me and they say, "Oh, Brandon, this guy, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, bro, you're trying to force other people to do shit. And what do we stand for? We stand for that's exactly what we're not supposed to be doing. Like, you got to fucking screw loose, okay? So you don't say, "Fuck you, do your job." You don't say, "Fuck you, that's not your job." You say, oh, I'm sorry. Are you, I didn't realize that I was hiring an attorney. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, you were giving me legal advice. So I just wasn't sure. Like, are you attempting to sell me attorney fees, or are you, do you want to become my attorney? I didn't realize you were a licensed attorney. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Are you practicing law without a license? Do you have a license to practice law? Like, you can be interested. Like, wow, you have a law license. How fascinating. When did you pass the bar? What do you mean? Well, you're practicing law. You're giving me personal advice on my documentation. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. You see what I mean? So you say it in a friendly way, and you're just kind of like very friendly with them.
Yeah.
That's not their fucking job. They are practicing law without a license, which is what everyone thinks I do, which is hilarious because that's not what I do at all. But the thing is that then you go see a notary and no one says that. That's what they're actually doing. If you look up the definition of practice law and you look up the definition of a license means bar card. It's not actually a license at all. It's a private membership document that allows people to administer assets of the court called infants or persons of unsound mind. So it's like when you start looking up all the definitions of the words, you realize that I'm not the one practicing law at all. It's these notaries that are telling you about your documents. Mm-hmm. Those guys are practicing law without a license, and they can be reported, and they can have their shit stripped, and they can have their job removed, and they can be on the streets. If you go to the bar and you say, "Hey, this notary down here at Chase was just trying to give, unlawfully give me legal advice," Now, you want to like chill a little bit too. It's like you can say stuff like, "Oh, excuse me, I didn't realize I came in here to buy legal advice." I didn't realize.
So once you get that, once you have that affidavit notarized, you then record it.
So you go to the notary. The notary says, "Oh, your documentation, what is this?" And you say, "Thank you very much. Have a nice day." That's what I would do. I mean, if you don't know any of this information, as soon as they start talking shit, you just stand up. You say, "Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day." You grab your I just walk out. I wouldn't even.
Yeah.
I would just go to the next spot and try again, and then go to the next spot, and then go to until you find someone that actually knows how to do their fucking job. If that's the easy way, that's like the zero confrontation, no information required. That's like easy street, in my opinion. If they start fucking around, thank you very much for your time. It's very, very appreciated. I've changed my mind on this. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you very much. And you just fucking walk out, right? So once you find a notary that actually knows anything about their job, which means that right away they're looking for the notary page. So they find the notary page. Okay, here we go. They're going to read the terminology on the notary page to make sure that it verifies with local laws. Okay, good. Now, once they verified that page, now let's say there's something wrong with that page. What are they going to do? They're going to pull a jurat or an acknowledgement out of their briefcase, and they're going to say the documentation and the wording here is a little bit off. We're going to use either an acknowledgement or a jurat, which you can look up the definition of what those means. And they're going to attach that to the back of the document to make sure that the wording is proper. That's the first thing they're going to do. Then once they verify that the wording is correct, then they're going to move to the second part of their duties, the only of second part of their duties, which is, may I have some sort of identification, state issued ID or some other yes, here's my passport card. Thank you very much. Now they're going to be looking at the passport card, looking at you, looking at the passport card, looking at the documentation to ensure that the guy here and the guy here and the guy here all match up. They want to make sure that all these different persons, all to the best of their ability. Okay, this guy here, he looks like this, and then there's this photo on this passport card. Let's take a look here. Oh yeah, they look the same. It says here hazel eyes, and he's 6'1", and oh yeah. He looks 6'1". He's got okay, good. That looks good. Okay, we have the document here. It says Brandon Joe Williams. Okay, good. So we're talking about this guy, and it looks like this guy, and bingo, we've got identification is completed. Now they move on to the third part of their job, of the only of three parts of their job. Part number 3 is, okay, sir, thank you very much for verifying your identification. You may now execute the document, which means sign now while I fucking look at you. Then after you sign the document, then you're going to sign their little notarization book, and you're going to put your thumbprint saying, I am who I say I am. I signed or notarized this particular document on this particular date, and here is my thumbprint in case you ever need to find me for some kind of fraud or fraudulent whatever. And then now in the future, they might have a situation where there's some kind of a legal debacle where they're like trying to figure out and authenticate who wrote or sent a document. They can go back and they can ask that notary, because they have the notary stamp on the document. They can subpoena the notary to get those an issuing of that page of the book that they had at that time. They have to save all these books in like fire retardant, high security like safes and shit like that at home. So then in 10 years or 5 years, if they get subpoenaed, they can go back and they can find that page and they can take a picture of it and they can submit it into the court in order to perform on a subpoena. And then once they send that into the court, now what happens is that signature that was on that piece of paper becomes what's called certified in the court. And that's the whole thing. That's why it exists. It exists to verify identity and to prevent fraud. That's really all it is.
So once you have the affidavit gone through the notary process, all that stuff, do you have to take it to the court to record it, or do you have to send it to the Secretary of State to have it authenticated? Is there any other process like that, or you just hold on to it? Or do you send it to the IRS?
An affidavit is just a sworn testimony that can be used as evidence in court. You can send it to anyone. You can do
so the revocation of election, though, specifically, like when you're doing that revocation of election,
yes, because if
you send that to the IRS.
If you write the revocation of election to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purpose of determining your income tax liability, if you write that as a declaration, it has way less power in a court than an affidavit. But an affidavit also has the ability to put your ass in a guillotine if you put anything on it that you know is false.
Right.
So when you write an affidavit, you want to be careful and you want to make sure, is everything on here as honest as possible to the best of my knowledge. And that's why bar card attorneys never write affidavits. They're professional liars. They don't want to stick their neck out and pledge anything under oath. So everything that bar cards write is all declarations. They never write affidavits.
So if we're getting back to the easiest and first step, the easiest thing to do to remove yourself from the jurisdiction of the IRS or whatever is to do the revocation or the revocation of election and then having it notarized and then sending that to the IRS.
Precisely.
So they have a copy? Okay.
Well, no. What
is there anything else?
You're writing orders.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're writing orders and updates. It's like updating your account. And then once they receive the orders and the updates, they always And when I say always, I don't mean 99% of the time. I don't mean that they call you to verify some of the information. I don't mean they have additional questions or they send you additional mail. I don't mean that they may or may not. When I say the word always, I mean 100% of the time. They take the orders and clarifications and they perform and they do exactly what you ask them to do. This is why the IRS is probably the only organization I'm never going to sue. They're the only organization that performs exactly what you tell them to do every single time you tell them to do it. If you say jump, they jump every fucking time.
Why is that?
I have no idea. If you say spin, they spin instantly. They're like a dog. It's like waiting for a command. You say spin, and they can't wait to fucking. They're spinning around.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so this is clearly one of the things I haven't done yet that I need to do. That is probably next on my list. Like I said,
never ever hear from the IRS. You will never ever get a questionnaire. You will never ever get a text. You will never ever get an email. You will never ever get a letter. You will never ever get a phone call. They will immediately, without sounding any trumpets, without sounding any bells, without absolutely any chance of them not do it, they will instantly perform. If you send in a revocation, an unsubscription request, as long as it uses the right words and it's done in a calm, professional. Now this goes even
non-combative.
Well, this gets even crazier. This gets even crazier. So combative and violent things typically reduce the chances that any organization will perform. Like going and sending something into the DMV that's like highly combative and violent typically means that they're just going to ignore whatever the orders are and they won't perform. The IRS will perform even if you're violent and combative to them, which is crazy, but you really, really, really should not do that. And that the whole point is you want to really, really, really work on yourself and understand this information well enough and how it all works to where you feel more maybe relaxed and more calm. My number one rule in all activities, my number one rule to success, if I had 10 rules for success, all 10 of them, all the way down, would be as friendly as you can, be as understanding as you can, understand that nobody knows any of this information. They have no idea. They're in a cubicle. Yep. If they knew this information, they wouldn't be there. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Realize that people in life are trying the best they can with the information they have. Be humble. At least attempt to communicate with people before you freak out. Be willing to experience extreme levels of stupidity and ignorance, and just try your best to be a decent person and look and assume that people are at least somewhat decent in trying to live at least a somewhat decent life, and maybe they're just operating under incorrect information or whatever. That would just be that whole thing repeated 10 times all the way down. That'd be my 10 commandments for success. Okay.
And that's what Bad Wolf always says too. James Lovett. Yeah. He's like, look, these people don't know. So like, if you try to argue with them, there's no point in doing it. You're just going to hold yourself back. You're going to frustrate them. You're going to frustrate yourself. Just ask for somebody else or find another way. Just there's a way to do it, but the way to do it isn't by being a jerk to these people. They're just doing their job from how they were told to do it. And we know that it might not be the right way to do it, but there's a way around that. And there's a way around that without being an asshole. So
that's really rule number one. But now most organizations, if you're a complete asshole and you're violent and you're combative, you will never get any performance. The IRS is so eager to perform, and they will follow your orders with such enthusiasm that you could be a completely belligerent, psychotic asshole, and shockingly, they'll still perform. But they're the only organization that fits that category. And if you behave that way with the IRS and you have success, you're gonna have a very bad wake-up call when you realize that the IRS is the only organization that will perform in that kind of behavior. If you try to recreate that behavior in other areas, literally any other area, Department of State, any other area, you will not get performance. It would be a false success because the IRS is the only organization that is just literally, it's like a dog and you have a ball in your hand and you can just feel that this dog is just like waiting for you to throw the ball with like every cell in his body is just like, oh my fucking God, he is about ready to throw literally heaven on earth in that direction. And I'm going to have the best time of my life chasing after this. Like I am literally, this could not get any, that's the IRS is the only organization that behaves that way.
Dude, I have a German short-haired pointer. He's a hunting dog, but he's gun shy, which is crazy. He was at gun dog school for like 6 months. They couldn't break him. Long story short, he is that way. He'll sit there and he'll see his tennis ball and he'll drop it at my feet and he'll literally just freeze like this.
Yeah.
And wait. And just if I like reach down to pick up the ball, he just like starts to shake and he's like looking, waiting. So like when you use that analogy, I know exactly what you mean, bro. Exactly what you mean. So here's a question.
See the IRS, but that's the way the IRS is when it comes to orders. And when you realize that that's the way the IRS is when it comes to orders, you can keep them short, you can keep them pithy, you can keep them unemotional, and it allows. It's like if you take a ball with a dog and you go like this, the dog's like, whoa, what's going on? This is confusing, right? It's like, that's what you're doing with the IRS when you write them a 15-page manifesto, right? It's very simple. I'm going to pick up the ball and then I'm going to throw it. At some point in my life, I elected to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purpose of determining income tax liability. That was done incorrectly. It needs to be removed, and it needs to be removed all the way back since its inception. And then you can put like a little naturalization statement in there. I hereby naturalize myself and my all caps name into I have my own nation called the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. So for me, it would just be the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. This is as per naturalization from 8 USC 1101 subsection 823. And then you can notarize it and send it in, and that's it. That'd be the whole document. That's all you need. Now, I have a document that I give away for free on the amnestycoalition.org. It has a little bit more to it. It has an opening statement section, which is just like, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the performance that you're about ready to do for me. I really appreciate your performance. Blah, blah, blah. You know, like I'm not a combatant or enemy, blah, 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 blah. So there's a little bit more to it. There's a definition section, I believe. There's a little bit more to it, but essentially it's a very, very simple document.
Do you have is that on your website?
That's on the amnestycoalition.org.
And so we could probably do an entire show just on starting your own nation. Like that's crazy.
It's really easy.
There's so much different stuff. So here's a question. Once you do that and you send everything to the IRS, at that point, you're pretty much not allowed to use your social security number anymore, right? You shouldn't be using
No, it has nothing to do with that at all
anyway.
whatsoever. That's a totally separate. The social security number is the EIN or employer identification number. It's the same as like a TIN or an EIN you get for a business. It's the EIN number of the ens legis business of your name in all capital letters. So to identify you, they would say, well, how do we identify you? You would say, well, I have a physical body and I can speak. If they were like, how do you identify the ens legis, all caps name, you would say the social security number. Like,
interesting.
Like the way that you would identify the social security, the ens legis is that it wears this little hi, my name is, and then on that hi, my name is at the party is the social security number.
Okay. That's good to know. Someone has a question here. If an organization performs, can they reverse their decision or something similar? Like once you do the revocation or the revocation of election, you send that to the IRS. Can they reverse that somehow?
After seeing hundreds of thousands of these things or tens of thousands of these things and never, ever even the slightest peep ever, not even a single question about anything ever, instantaneous, 100% unquestioning performance. With the IRS, I've never seen it, and I don't know if I ever will. Any other organization, maybe, I guess, but no, typically you're just one of 80 trillion different things they're trying to do each day, and they don't give a fuck. And as long as whatever you're trying to get them to do is within the confines of something that they can get some information on, or they don't care. They're just cogs in the machine, and they just process the orders.
Damn. So if someone is watching this stream right now and they are like, well, I'm going to do this, right? Like, this is a no-brainer. And they go through and they do that and they send it into them, get it notarized, everything, blah, 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 go through it. But their employer is still taking taxes out of their paycheck. Or how does that work? Do they have to update anything with their employer? Do they have to correct anything? Do they have to go through? Or what do they have to look for?
That's a much more difficult conversation. Much more. You don't know what you're going to get. Some businesses and employers, especially tiny ones, they love it and they want more information. And they get very excited, and it becomes this whole cool conversation that deepens your relationship with your employer. Whereas there's many other circumstances, especially in more corporate environments, where literally all fucking hell breaks loose. So it's.
But if you don't have any obligation to the IRS at that point, you could just continue to do your own thing and then not. I know this is not legal advice.
There's two
Would you
different
just
options.
not file taxes?
Well, the definition of legal advice, by the way, the legal definition of the term legal advice means giving someone advice specifically and explicitly about a personal situation they are currently experiencing.
Okay.
So when you say, hey, I am dealing with this situation and this happened and this happened, what can I do about this situation? That would be legal advice. Saying, well, what if someone had this situation? That wouldn't actually be technically legal advice.
Okay. So no one could hold you accountable for coming on the stream and saying,
legal advice is only prosecutable if you are a resident of one of the 50 states or a naturalized U.S. citizen. As a non-citizen national, I can give legal advice and it wouldn't be something I can be prosecuted for.
Okay.
Just
so like how would that work? Would you just not file taxes at that point?
So the thing is that there's two ways that you can handle that. Way number one is you would give your employer what's called a W-8-BEN form, which means a foreign beneficiary. And you would also issue them a new I-9 form with box 2 checked, non-citizen national of the United States. That's option number one. Now that's a 50-50. That's all hell could break loose, or maybe it won't, or maybe they'll just entirely ignore you because they just think that you're batshit crazy and hope that you just stop asking. Those are the three things that are going to happen. Okay. Now there's two ways to handle that situation. Option number one is to fight like hell and to get it handled and completed anyways. And many people have lost their job over this, by the way. And many people have also successfully done this and gotten HR or typically lawyers become involved in this, by the way.
So your job
HR,
can fire you?
If there's an HR or a treasury or whatever, typically there's some external retainer lawyer or internal lawyer, or there's some lawyer. They always get lawyers involved, and they always escalate the situation. It's never like a couple people who are retarded who are in treasury who are working on invoices and they get this thing and they're like in HR and they process it. No, they typically always escalate the situation. Okay, so to what was the question you just asked a minute ago? Right now.
So, like, if you send the revocation or revocation of election to the IRS, like, what do you do then? Do you just not file taxes? Do you not pay taxes? Do you have no obligation to them? And if so, like, do you have to inform your employer, or do you go?
Well, no. The revocation of election goes to the IRS, and then the W-8-BEN and the I-9 goes to the employer.
Right, but do you have to send? Once you send it to IRS, they're not going to come after you.
I just remembered your last question. You said, what if they don't do it? Then what? So if they don't process your documentation, or if they fire you from the job because of your documentation, that would actually be a discrimination suit. You can actually
they can't fire you for how you file or register or whatever.
If you really want to get crazy legal and specific about it in a way that literally no one will ever talk about it in this way, because no one understands any of this wants to talk about it. The real question is this. Let's say, for example, I was hired as a consultant and we were like transferring a business out of that, and we were transferring it all into a private irrevocable trust, which I've done, which is really fun. Let's say there was, like, right at the very beginning of that, when I was still concerned about the thing being fully in the system, if someone came in and they said, hey, and they have a WABE and an I-9, my first question would be, where's your passport?
Yeah.
So if they handed me a passport, and I would call the Department of State and I'd be like, hey, I need to verify that this guy is checked no to U.S. citizen on his mother and his father on the DS-11, or any information I can get at all whatsoever. They might not give it to you because of privacy laws or whatever, but I would try my best to verify and make sure the DS-11 was done properly. If the DS-11 was done properly, or if they give me a passport, or they could also give me an affidavit. If they gave me an affidavit and a release of liability and a passport, I would process all that immediately. But the thing is that nobody knows any of this information, including the bar card attorneys, including payroll companies. Nobody knows any of this information. So what they're going to say is, you're a sovereign citizen, piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. And then that's it. That's usually how it goes, right? Now, there's two additional options that you can do from this point. Option number one is just like the guy here, Lance Mitchell, is saying. I see some of the comments popping up. You can file exempt. So you write the word exempt under box 4C on the W-4 tax form. Now, if you look at the W-4 and you look down in the instructions section of the W-4, it literally tells you to do this. The problem is that if you look underneath box 4C, there's no information there. If you didn't go down and read the instructions, you would never know. It's almost like a secret thing that if you don't go down and read the instructions, you would never know. It's not part of the line item breakdown of the form. Now you just look in the instructions and it tells you this.
Crazy, bro.
You can write exempt. Now there's also option number 3. Option number 3 is the lowest confrontation option, but it also requires a little bit of extra work. At the end of the year, you would file something like a 1040-NR, which is a non-resident alien tax form. You would say, I've paid in $9,862. My tax liability is 0. Please return my $9,862. And what does the IRS
the government
do?
A free loan for a year.
Here's the ball. The IRS is like this. What do? They perform immediately, and they'll send you the $9,862. You guys, everyone thinks the IRS is evil. They want to keep all your money. If you clearly and simply send the order, I paid this much throughout the year, I have a 0 tax liability, so please return the $9,862 to me at this address, and you don't add any other craziness, and I'm going to kill you and burn the IRS and fuck the IRS and defund the IRS and audit the IRS, and just real simple, just an order.
Yeah,
it looks real simple. It's real simple. It's all, and but they will issue you a check for $9,860 refund.
Bro, you are hilarious, dog. So someone says here, how does this apply to capital gains tax, or does it?
It's all the same.
Yeah, shit. Same thing, right? So like, if you are in the crypto realm and you cash out, then if you've done everything properly and you filed your affidavits and you've given the notice to the proper places, then you don't have a liability. So
yep. And the IRS is just a computer that wants to perform. And the thing is that you've been telling the IRS all the wrong shit, and it's just been performing in accordance with everything you've been telling it. You tell it that you're a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person, which is in the certification section of a W-9. It's in section 2 of the W-9. Hell, if you look at the W-9 tax form, right next to where you sign, it says signature of U.S. person. You tell them and you break down where your income's coming from and what money you spent on marketing. You tell them all this information, and then you tell them that you owe them $6,000. And then all they're doing is performing by knocking on your door and saying, hey, hi, buddy. Hi, Jim. How you doing? Hey, a couple months ago, you told us that you owed us $6,000. We're just here to perform on that debt. We just want to know what's going on with the debt that you said you owed us. That's all they're doing. They're performing based off of the orders that you gave them.
Yeah. 26 CFR 601.602, the tax system is based upon voluntary compliance.
The IRS is a computer system that is frothing at the mouth to perform.
Yeah.
Whatever you put into the computer is exactly what's going to come out the other end every fucking time.
It's crazy, dude. God, this is crazy. Yeah, and so like for someone who's watching this who has never ever heard of this before, your initial response is, okay, you guys are full of shit. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Because if this was true, everyone would be doing it. And then you start to do your own research, if you're smart enough, or if you care enough, or if you give a fuck. And then you start to find little nuggets, and you're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. Well, let me dig deeper into that. And then you just keep going down this rabbit hole, and like everything you find is just like, what have I been doing with my entire life? Why have I not paid attention? Why have I not given it? Well, you know, we're taught one thing, and we've been programmed so long to think a certain way or to do something, and our parents did it, and their parents did it, and their parents did it. So if I don't do it, I'm just some crazy loon ball, and I don't want to go to jail. Like, I don't want them to throw me in jail. So like, I'm just going to pay my taxes and be a good little citizen and just do whatever I could do to just keep things moving forward. But yeah, that's not why I'm in this life. I'm not in this life to perform for somebody else. Like, I'm here to perform for me and my family, and to know my rights. And I'm a firm believer that if you don't know your rights, you will lose them. And it's our job as nationals or as citizens or whatever, it is our job to do the research and to educate ourselves and to know this, because no one else is going to do it for us. We have to do it on our own. I don't know how much time you got, man. We've been going for 2 hours already. You are an absolute rock star. This has been a ton of fun. Everyone in the chat is loving it. I don't want to keep you all night, but my dog's coming in now, and looks like my wife is bringing me dinner, which is a great coincidence. I will be up momentarily. I think we're almost done, babe. Thank you, though. That's crazy. That was cool.
Good. I mean, the IRS
but
is super
man,
simple.
holy cow.
The IRS is just this. You gave the IRS orders. Now they are performing on those orders. And when it ping pongs back to you and they're performing on the orders that you originally gave them, now you are failing to perform on the contract you created.
Yeah.
And then they sue you for breach of contract. You created the fucking contract. They did exactly what you told them to do.
Right.
And then when they went and got the ball, they ran as hard and as well. They're pretty slow. They ran to get the ball at whatever speed they ran, but they did not deviate. That ball, if it takes them 3 or 4 months or whatever, they went and got the fucking ball every goddamn time. And they brought the ball right back to your fucking feet. They put the ball down. And then what did you do? Essentially, kind of in the contractual world, you kicked him in the head. By not performing on the whole thing that you're the one who brought to the table. You created the contract, you brought it to them, and you said, bitch, perform on this debt I owe you.
Right.
And now
they're like, hey, yes, what's going on? Come on, let's go. Your turn.
The IRS says, yes, sir. And they perform on the orders that you gave them on the debt that you said you owe them. And then it comes back, and now you're all like, why are you here? And oh my God, you're scary. And they go online and they say, fucking defund the IRS. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then now they sue you for breach of contract. And actually, it's funny is the IRS will send you letters. Hey, we're just trying to perform. Like, hey, they're pretty nasty letters. Don't get me wrong, but yeah. they're really what they're saying is like, hey, like what's going on here, and like we're just trying to perform, and like we're here to collect on this thing that you said you owe us. Like we're just here because you. That's all they're doing, and then you ghost them or whatever, and then now they say, hey, this dude brought a contract to us. We are performing. He's not, and they sue you for breach of contract. And then you
It's
complain
crazy.
and say that you're the victim when you're literally just fucked in the head, basically.
Yeah. So, there's people that I found along the way, and so anybody who's watching this and you've never heard of this before, and you hear us talking about this stuff, there are people out there who will charge you like a flat rate. I know there's a couple people in the Hex community, a couple Hexicans who paid people to get them through the passport process and this and that, and that's cool. If you want to do that, do it. But you don't have to. You don't have to pay. I've paid for documents, a few things from the Bad Wolf, and he's a rock star, and I love him. He's awesome. I've gotten a lot of information from him, and I've got some documents from him, and he's responded back, and he's a super cool guy. But you don't have to pay people to do this for you. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do this. This is something that can be done in your own time. And one of the things that I'm trying to work on is a checklist of what to do and how to go through it as quickly and simply as possible. So I started this process, like I said, a year and a half ago. And my goal was to get as much information as I could to bring it back to this crypto community that I'm in and show anyone who wanted to or felt like it was their right to take control of their rights, which is weird to even say, that they would know and have a very easy laid out process to go through, because it is difficult. It's long. It's crazy. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of really good information in this stream that we've talked about so far. But that's what I want to do, man. And I didn't want to talk about anything until I got to the point where I felt at least comfortable enough to get on with someone who knew what the fuck they're talking about and kind of not sound like a complete fool in the conversation like today. But now I'm getting to the point where I am comfortable with everything. And I'm excited to bring all of this information into the crypto communities, man. And you're seeing a lot of presidential candidates now. Trump and Biden are both big on crypto. The last couple of weeks, it's been crypto, crypto, crypto. Biden's meeting with the Bitcoin people, blah, 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 the ETH ETF people. So if we can get this information into these crypto communities and all these other people start doing it, like you said earlier, it gets much easier once a lot more people have gone through the process and start kicking on the bank doors and kicking on the creditors' doors. They're out there, right? There's people in our community right now who are charging people to do their taxes, to write legal documents, to do all this stuff. But you don't have to pay all of this money for these people to do this stuff for you. There is another option for you. And
when you
dude,
understand,
well,
that's I love everything you're saying. When you understand how this works, a revocation of election can be 2 sentences, and you go down to the bank and get it notarized for free, and you send it, and you're done. I mean, I have a free document for you that you can use, and there's a lot of other documents that you can use or pay for. But really, truly, at the end of the day, when you really, really understand how all this works, you can take a goddamn ink pen on a piece of paper. You don't even need to print the damn thing. You can take a blue ink pen and a piece of paper. It could be lined paper, and you can handwrite a revocation of election, which is just a few sentences, and then go to the notary, and the notary will pull a jurat out of their bag, and they'll use that. You don't even need to bring them the goddamn thing, and then they'll staple it on the back for free, and then you can mail it certified mail. And the IRS, if they can read it, I mean, literally, if they can barely even make out the words on the paper, they'll process the ROE.
So someone says here, what about?
It goes without saying, if they can't physically, I mean, it's sad that I have to even say this, but this is the truth of reality we live in. If they can't physically read your handwriting, they are not going to be able to perform that of which you're asking them to perform. Why I even need to say that is just goes to show you how ridiculous all this is. But that's it. As long as they can read, can a human being read and understand the orders and the updates that you are sending? And if the answer is yes, it can be 2 lines and you can mail it in and your ROE is done.
Someone in the chat said, what about paying the states? And that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. The states, you're paying so say you live in Georgia, you're paying the state of Georgia. Your state taxes come from a daughter company of the federal corporation.
So I'll explain this, but I'm going to get another drink. Give me 1 second. Give me a little break here. Like 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, brother. For sure. I am going to, while he's doing that, I'm going to pull up Brandon's page, just so everyone can see and everyone can go and share. See what his page is. Make sure that you follow at @1_stupid_fuck on Twitter. And he's got his website here, onestupidfuck.com. And watch this video when you get a chance. This is a really, really good video. Vibra Finance, I think it was, had posted this. And I saw it, and I had been going through this process, and I saw that everything that he was talking about, and I was like, holy cow, this guy's awesome. And that's when I messaged him and asked him if he would come on and stream. And we've had this scheduled for a few weeks now. And I am super, super, super excited that Brandon came on with us here and gave us a lot of information. He is a wealth of knowledge. One other person who I want you guys to go check out is Black Site 32. Black Site 32. How do I share this tab instead? Here we go. Black Site 32. This is the Bad Wolf, James C. Lovett. You can follow him on Twitter and also on YouTube. He does most of his stuff on YouTube, but these two guys are where I get a lot of my information from. And the Bad Wolf is super, super awesome.
I love
But yeah, he's so knowledgeable. And like, there'd be times where I watch his videos and he's talking about things, and it's kind of like when I read through the legalese and like the UCC or whatever, and all the different stuff. I'll have to read it a couple of times, but same with his videos. Like, there's times where he's explaining things and I'll have to listen to it a few times before I comprehend exactly what he's saying. But he does such a good job of explaining it. And you guys are awesome, man.
One thing about James too is he'll have several videos where he's explaining that thing again in a different way,
ways. Yep.
In a different. So James is a great content creator, because he's just like, it'll be a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and he'll do a whole nother run, and he'll do a Q&A, and he'll have new information, and then 6 months, and then he'll do a whole nother, and he almost runs on sort of like a revolving, like a I don't think he's this organized. He's a very organized guy, but it just seems like it just kind of flows out, and there's a bunch
of something videos, and he'll come back, and
6 months he'll run through all those same ideas all over again. The Bad Wolf, yeah, he's the Bad Wolf. But I want to get to Hex's question. That was a great question. The states,
yep.
And then I'm probably going to head out after this one. So
that's cool.
So I've actually been doing a lot more research on this recently, actually. So let's say, for example, the state of California, which is a business. How do you not pay, or how do you? So the term is tax liability, and if you look up the definition of the term taxpayer in the Internal Revenue Code, it comes from 26 USC 7701 subsection A14. The definition of taxpayer is any person who is subject to any internal revenue tax. So a taxpayer is somebody who needs to pay taxes, essentially. That's the definition of taxpayer, which no one knows that definition, and it throws people off pretty badly a lot because they use that term on everything. Taxpayer is like their unsafe word. They use it everywhere. Taxpayer is like their favorite. They never say person. They say taxpayer on everything, except the initial documentations like W-2s and W-4s and W-9s. Once you're signed up, everything is taxpayer this and taxpayer. Yeah. Once you sign up, you're a taxpayer, right? So the way that states work is totally different. So I'm going to give an example of California, state of California, the business state of California specifically, because I was doing a lot of research on that recently. So the way it works is there's not really any laws in state codes involving physical residence. They'll say something like, if the person is located in state of California, but the thing is that there has to be, in order to determine physical residence, there would need to be like coordinates or some kind of like very, very, very specific. If a human flesh body male or female, is located in these coordinates over the, it has to be like a really hardcore, nothing in the law is anything like that. So when you start to look further and further and further into state codes and how residency is determined, residency is determined by you saying that you live there. It's just naturalization. They don't call it naturalization though. And they it's way more vague than what's in the federal. The federal, I think, is a lot better. They use the term like naturalization, and it's very clear. The state codes, what they do is they determine, quote, physical residence, unquote, based off of three major things. Number one is voter registration. Number two is a driver's license. Number three is when you pay state tax. So it's kind of a weird catch-22. You pay state tax, which makes you a resident and makes you liable for state tax. So if you don't have voter registration and you don't have a driver's license, but you're paying state tax, then you're a resident because you pay state tax. If you don't have a driver's license and you don't have voter registration and you don't have pay state tax and you live primarily out of a P.O. box, which is what I do, there's no way for them to determine residency. And they'll say something like, oh, well, you're a resident because of blah, blah, blah. And you say, whoa, hold on there, bucko. The thing is that, as per the laws, and you can start digging into the laws and you'll see that pretty much the only way that you can be a resident of the business called State of California is just by saying it in some capacity. You have to say it. If you don't say it, then you aren't. And the thing is that they try to force you to be a resident and you say, no, I'm not. And they try to force it on you. Now what you're doing is you're going to be saying the 13th Amendment has made involuntary servitude illegal. And you're going to say that the Article 15 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights says that everyone has the right to a nationality and that nationality can be changed at any time. And no one can stop you from changing your nationality. So now what happens is now you turn that situation into an international human rights case, and you can go to like Interpol courts or the UN, and you actually turn that case into an international human rights violation case. Because the thing is, if you don't say that you are a resident of State of California through some sort of means, such as a driver's license or voter registration or putting your address on everything under the sun, moon, and stars, which is also a mistake, you should keep your address off of things. You can also use C/O, which I know you've seen. James T. Levitt talks about it a lot. So when you use CO in your address, which by the way, they're making it harder and harder to do that now. Most computer systems are not allowing that anymore because obviously there's a fuckload of people doing this right now. A lot of interest in this information. CO, C/O means in care of. In care of means I don't domicile or residence here, but I do receive mail at this address.
Yep.
So C/O is good, but a P.O. box is like the best, like fucked, like through the roof, awesome, badass, or a virtual mailbox, super great, badass, really great choice. Because then they take you to court and they say, oh, you are a resident of State of California, Mr. Williams. You say, how? And you say, it's a California address. I said, that's a fucking mailbox, bro. Go there and check it out. I'm not a resident. You can't residence or domicile there. That's not a residence or a domicile. And they go, oh shit. So the thing is that as long as you're, and if anybody did bring up my home address, I'd go fucking absolutely ballistic. I'd have lawsuits in fucking international courts and I'd be calling the UN. I'd be going fucking nuts. Because I'm not a resident of the business called State of California. And I will go absolutely ape shit if anybody says that I am or tries to force that on me. I will make everyone's lives hell on earth forever if they try to pull that shit on me.
So the
short answer of the question is, if you don't pay state taxes, you aren't a resident, but you also would need to not have a driver's license or voter registration. Voter registration is very, very easy in California. They literally have a form, and it's like, well, your name, your address, and then I hereby certify that I'm removing voter registration, and you just mail it to a P.O. box in Sacramento, and you're done. It's super easy. Some states don't have it, and people, oh, how do I just write up an affidavit, get it notarized, and mail it into the Secretary of State or something? They'll say on the top, "Hey, I'm not sure if this is supposed to go to you guys or whatever. Could you please forward this to the?" You can be, the problem is, again, you're trying to get performance. You're always trying to get performance. Performance is defined as, hey, I'm erasing this thing called voter registration. Can you please update the computer or records? You're asking for them to perform. If you're kind and you're simple and you're pithy and you give the information that's needed, but not too much, and you're not sending 480-page tomes that are filled with, I'm going to bomb you and anthrax you and your family's lineage, and there'll be blood flowing in the streets. A lot of that stuff gets sent. And then it's like, oh, they didn't perform, and because they have the intent to harm me and to prevent me from my. No, they don't. They're in a cubicle. They hate their life. They're getting paid $15 an hour, and you're a fucking asshole, and they threw your shit in the garbage can. That's what happened.
Yeah. They're like, fuck this guy.
Fuck this guy. Look at this fucking retard while they're eating their fucking croissant, and they're like, oh, morbidly obese. Hey, look at this fucking retard. Watch this. And they throw it in the trash can. That's what they did.
Yeah. So the kicker there that most people, and this is my wife's biggest hang up on everything and going through it, and this is her biggest worry, is not having a state issued driver's license. A lot of people are like, and one of the companies or people or attorneys or whatever that I spoke with who wanted to charge a big, very large sum of money to do all my paperwork for me said that they have a document that you can give to the DMV that says, hey, look, I am not a citizen and I am not engaging in commerce. But I know that if I get pulled over, some stupid cop isn't going to know what the fuck I'm talking about when I hand him my passport or my passport card. Which is a whole nother subject we could get into with getting pulled over with your passport card and 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, do not detain list, all sorts of crazy stuff. But that's the biggest hang up for a lot of people.
Well, you're starting to get into
not having license plates, not having a driver's license.
Let's just back up, because you want to start at the ground floor. You want to invite people into this. The tax stuff and the passport stuff is super easy. Like the passport stuff, the worst thing that could possibly happen is they're going to send you a letter, and it's going to say, hey, it appears that you're trying to not get a U.S. citizen passport, but we can only give you a U.S. citizen passport. Do you want a U.S. citizen passport or not? Like a small percentage, like 2 or 3%, get that letter. I've already got the solution to that letter on my website for free. You just send them back a letter that says, hey, I signed the DS-11 form under penalty of perjury. I notarized anything else that I sent you, such as an explanatory statement under penalty of perjury. I stand by both documents, knowing that if I was found guilty of perjury on both documents, I could face up to 2 years in prison. Please process the documents as they were sent in. You don't even engage.
Yep.
You don't
I got
engage.
those documents this week.
Yeah.
I got those back this week.
Now, I've had one report so far of that not working. Only one, ever. And it just happened like last week. Now, if you send that document and they send you the same thing back, hey, we have it. That's happened a couple times. You just send I signed the one under penalty of perjury. Oh, I'm willing to go to prison for 2. You send the same fucking thing again.
Yeah. That's what the Bad Wolf James Lovett told me this week. He was like, hey, look, don't take it personally. Just send the documents back. Because I sent him with everything the first time. And I was like, did I do something wrong? And he was like, nope. Just resend them over. Just resend them back. He was like, they're testing to see if you're going to stand up for your rights.
I don't think they're, well, I love James, and James has a lot of information.
Yeah.
Maybe he's right. But from my own personal experience, it's just pure ignorance.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a fucking clue. I don't think they care. I think they hate their life. I think it's different. But James has a lot of experience here, so he might be right, or maybe from his own experiences, he's right, and from my own experiences, I'm right. But I tend to fall more on the complete retard level of things from my experiences. I've talked to a lot of people.
Too.
So and whatever, it's just sad, really. I mean, but it takes away the anger, because anger enters in when you assume their intent is to harm you.
Right.
When you think they know, and you think they're fucking with you and they know, that's when you're going to get angry. And I swear on everything I find holy. I swear on all my research, and I never swear on my research on anything. I swear on my own dick that these people have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
And maybe James
No
is
idea.
right. And maybe James has had different experiences. I'm not saying James is wrong. James is fucking literally brilliant. I'm just telling you from my experiences.
Yeah, they just don't know, dude.
They
I think the same
literally
thing,
don't
man.
have a fucking.
They're just doing what they were told to
district
do.
managers of massive, huge passport agencies here in downtown Los Angeles. They have no clue about any of this.
Yep.
Not a fucking clue. And they think we're crazy. They think we're sob citizens. They think this, or sometimes they're cool. I know some people at the passport office, like Sharice over here by me. She's the one I send all my people to, and I go to. She loves this shit. She thinks it's amazing. She thinks it's crazy.
Yeah.
She's seen a few people over the years do it, and now all of a sudden she's like, now people are coming in all the time and doing it. Hell, she even told me, she's like, Brandon, I've been thinking about doing it and talking to my friends about doing it for myself.
Yep.
So you have the whole gamut. You have a whole gamut of emotional reactions. But the thing is that I've already shown you guys 22 CFR 51.2. Passports can only be issued to U.S. nationals. At USC 1101 subsection 822, a U.S. national is defined as A, a citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. 22 USC 212, a passport can only be issued to a person who pledged allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. This is not a pipe dream. This is not complicated. This is not a false information maze. This is very, very simple. There are two categories. Both of them involve allegiance and location. One of them is allegiance and location where you're in the District of Columbia. And the other one is, no, let me ask you a question. Do you have to live in the District of Columbia to pledge allegiance to the District of Columbia?
Right. No.
And that's why a non-citizen national is so powerful. You can live in Japan and pledge allegiance to the United States.
Yeah.
And that's why they call it a resident alien or a non-resident alien. A non-resident alien is somebody who lives in Japan and pledges allegiance to the United States.
That's wild, bro. That's wild. God, that's crazy. Holy cow. Dude, we could go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. This has been super, super awesome. Very informative. Super cool. Everyone in the chat loves it. It's been really good. I'm going to clip some stuff up. You dropped some knowledge bombs today, dude. And I'm just going to start posting them out there because I really, really, really think it's very important for people to pay attention to this. And there's a couple people who I've advised against it. People who are receiving VA benefits, military benefits, or people who are receiving social security benefits. Really, they can still continue to receive their benefits
because there's two persons here.
Right.
One person you can leave them in the District of Columbia. What is the definition of naturalization?
Who you owe allegiance to,
the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So when you realize that you're two persons, the ens legis and yourself as the human being or the man or whatever, a million different fucking ways of whatever. The thing is that now that you split into two persons, who are they paying the disability and all this other shit to? Are they paying it to the ens legis, the all caps name? Or are they paying it to you as the human being that's not incorporated?
The all caps name.
Yeah. If the all caps name is already naturalized into the District of Columbia, leave it there. It's like a snake and it just leaves its skin behind. You go back to California and you leave the goddamn thing in the District of Columbia.
So you would still collect your Social Security?
Yeah, you can get
and then, but then that person,
Social Security, food stamps, you can get it all.
But then they would be responsible for paying taxes
on
right?
that specific
income
that they get. Yeah, but that's a whole nother. Once you learn how negotiable instruments work, I could go and tell the IRS that I made $850 trillion. And then what are they going to do? They're going to perform. And how are they going to perform? They're going to send me a bill, which means bill of exchange. And they're going to say you owe $400 million in taxes. You can endorse the bill of exchange that they mail you, which means perform, which means pay. send it back, and it discharges and brings that liability down to a zero.
Would you be able to do that for state taxes?
Yes. Now with state taxes, I don't know. So every single state is different. Again, the
Right.
IRS, they can't wait to go and chase that ball. They're shaking. They're like, their mouth is watering. They're like, they don't even know that they have a body. They're so excited. They're out of their skull.
Yeah.
They're like elated. It's a spiritual experience that they're experiencing to perform for you. The states typically are not like that. So the states are more like you might need to litigate or bash their head in, or God knows what you're going to get yourself involved in. The states, it's all over the map what you're going to get with the states.
Yeah.
I know what you're going to get with the IRS. You're going to get German Shepherd, ball, all day, smashing through bushes, jumping over fences, trying to get to it, to get back to you, like whatever it takes. Bombs, fucking landmines, helicopters. They have one focus. They want to get that ball and bring it back to you. That's the IRS. The state, you just rolling the dice. No idea. You never know what you're going to get.
Interesting. Well, damn, dude. Thank you for coming on, man. It's been awesome. Really, really good. There's a million things that I want to talk to you about, and hopefully I can get you back on stream again. Creating a nation, one thing, your own nation. That's awesome. I hear James talk about that a lot. But yeah, dude, I don't want to take up your night, and I got bedtime here, but for my kiddo, thank you very, very much, Brandon. I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate you taking the time to come on here. You don't know me from Adam, and I reached out to you, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a month ago, and you're like, yeah, I'm super busy, but I'll schedule you in, bro. And you hit me up today, and we're like, all right, I need the link, and you made it happen, dude. You showed up, and it was awesome. And it's hard to do that, to try to get guests on and have them remember, let alone be proactive, like, hey, are we doing this? Like, let's make it happen. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much for all of your information. And I'm super pumped to see where this goes, because, bro, you're a knowledgeable guy and you're charismatic, and people love you. Like, everyone in the chat was loving you. So I'm gonna put a bunch of clips out there. I've been putting your info out there. I want people to follow you. It blows my mind that, where's Dag on Twitter? I think you've only got like 1,000 people. Are you on Instagram or anywhere else? Where can people find you? Or
yeah, so on Facebook I have like maybe 14 or 15 or 18,000, and then on Instagram I have like 25,000, and then
holy cow.
But what's funny is my email list is actually my biggest one. I have about 36,000 on the email list. Whew, and I like the email list is where I put a lot of my eggs, because you can't be deplatformed off of an email list.
Right.
So when I designed all this and I put it all together, I wanted the brand to be unfact checkable, uncancelable. I wanted to cancel myself. I wanted to build it on email lists and not on social media, because I didn't want to get deplatformed. And then turns out I say anything I want and I do anything I want, and I never really have issues with deplatforming. And the reason why is I stay away from hot topics. I stay away from the left versus the right. I invite liberals in, conservatives, anything you want. You can come in and you can join us and you can be a part of the conversation. Doesn't matter. I'm not making fun of people. I'm not, a lot of people talk down about different things. Like, for example, I've been on shows where people are like talking mean things about like trans. And I say, well, hold on a second there. I say, look, the trans people don't realize that they've fallen into a bit of a trap, because when they say I'm not a man or a woman, I'm a blah, you don't have human rights anymore. Now, the thing is that the trans person may have never been told that. So the way I think in my mind is that now we have a fraud contract, because now they've been coerced into a contract that they didn't realize they were getting into, right? Now, the thing is that I look at it this way. If you are told, look, if you do this, you no longer have human rights, and you understand that, and you still decide to do it, that's free will. America is free will. We live in a country that was born on free will. If you want to cut your dick off and call yourself I always call it a non-binary shooting star, as long as you know as long, and I don't say that to degrade them. I say it as a bit
Right,
of
right.
a light-hearted joke. If you know the contract that you're getting yourself involved in, and you decide willingly and knowingly, you know what, Brandon, I know this is going to chop all my human rights. I know the legal repercussions of this, and I want to do it anyways. You know what I say to that? 10-4, Captain. I'm all for it. I'm not going to be your best friend. I'm not going to go into business with you. I'm not going to, but you know what? I respect the fact that you are exercising your free will in a way that doesn't necessarily harm or annoy other people. Now, if you're in the street and there's kids and you've got dildos strapped to your body and there's kids and you're doing the library sing-alongs with the kids, and that's different, because
it's different.
Now you're affecting other people in a way that could be construed as negative or positive depending on who you ask about. That's not really, but just all by yourself, and you're doing this and you're changing your clothes and you're chopping your dick off. Really, at the end of the day, to me, that's an exercise of free will.
Right. Yeah. If you want to, you're right. You have every right to do that.
So when you really understand this, I don't hit any of the hot button landmines that are out there. And I say all this crazy, wild shit. Now, in all honesty and in full transparency, I spend a lot of money. I have blue check marks on every single platform. I spend $12,000 a month for paid advertising on Facebook and Instagram. So the thing is that, but I've been doing paid ads. I mean, paid ads was my whole profession for the past 14 years. So it's where I make all my money. So you got to realize I'm a very high payer. I was a member of Facebook literally at the very, very beginning when Facebook first came out, and you could only get in if you were part of a college.
Yep.
The first 4 months Facebook was out, I was a member. So I'm like a legacy member in my own mind. I spend a shitload of money. I've been spending a shitload of money on Meta platforms for literally, not even kidding, 10, 12 years. I've been on Google AdWords as a paid advertiser since 2010. I pay $450 a month to keep my MailChimp because I have a massive email list. I pay, so I pay, I contribute, I stay away from political hot buttons. I make fun of myself. I self-deprecate. I designed all this.
Yeah, it's smart. Purpose. It's brilliant, dude. It's brilliant.
So the thing is I don't say the stuff that I say because I don't want to get deplatformed. I say the stuff that I say because I've taken the time to try to understand it well enough to say it in a way where I can get behind it with my heart. So when I say now, if I have a trans person and I say, by doing that, you don't have any human rights, and they say, fuck you, and I just want to be around kids, and fuck you, and fuck your, that's when I'm like, okay, no, like you're gone. You're out of my life. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't want to have
you don't need that.
Yep. But the thing is that just have the conversation first, and then now I'm determining how that's gonna go. You see.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have anything taken off my YouTube. I don't have any problems with YouTube. I don't have any problems with people say shadow ban. In fact, I get organically shared all the time. I have people coming on. They're like, I was shown an ad, and it wasn't even a paid ad. It was like an organic, like, hey, you might be interested in this too, kind of. I get shared organically. I get no issues. I get no reports. I get no shadow bans. I get nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That's awesome, man. I love it. And you're really good at what you do, and you're extremely knowledgeable, and you present the information in a way that makes it fun for everybody, right? Yeah. You're not condescending about it. It's fun. It's fucking brilliant, dude. I love every second of it, and I love it all. I saw that video, the first one that you have is your pinned tweet or whatever, and I was like, this guy's awesome. Like I absolutely love everything that he's about, and he's smart and he's knowledgeable and he knows what the fuck he's talking about. So everyone go through. I just put up all of his different pages up here. Make sure that you go and follow Instagram, Twitter, or X, Meta, Facebook, YouTube, and visit his website, the amnestycoalition.org.
Well, that one specifically, the onestupidfuck.com is like the hub. That's the central hub for everything. The Amnesty Coalition is specifically for the nation. And if you want
Okay.
the documents that I have created and shared for free, if you go back to the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, one of the
Yep.
links up top is resources and documents. Now, do not just out of nowhere, straight out the gate, come on here and start downloading documents and sending them in. You
Yep.
need to pump the brakes. You might have a lot of
Yep.
enthusiasm, which is fantastic. Pump the brakes and really go through all the definitions of all the words and a lot of the basic information and the information about contracts and the basic fundamentals of law and trust law and how trusts are established. And it's not that complicated. My free contract killer course on onestupidfuck.com is very simple. It's 39 days. It's one video per day for 39 days. It's very, very simple. In fact, everything on that course is about 40 times more dumbed down than this podcast that we're on right now.
Okay. Good.
We're talking
Good.
we're talking like Sesame Street, Barney and Friends type shit. Okay.
Good.
Go through that. Go through everything. Start to get a real solid foundation of the basic ideas of the words and the definitions and what things are and where things are. Start pulling documents and things up and start pulling documents from your HR department. Oh, what did I sign when I first started here? I don't even remember. Get the documents, read them over, you're talking 15 minutes per document, 20 minutes per document. You're not talking about days and days and days. And then at some point, you'll start feeling more comfortable. That's when you need to come in here and you can start looking at the free documents and the diplomatic plates, all the stuff that I offer. And then you can come in here and you can download all the stuff for free. You can make minor or major, but really you only need very minor adjustments to most of the things that I give away for free. And you can start sending things in and taking action. But I don't recommend that without any knowledge, you just start downloading shit and printing shit and taking shit and doing that. I just don't think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is to the point where I'm at now, and I wanted to dive in head first, and then once I dove in head first, I was like, dude, I need a much larger understanding of what the hell's going on before I send anything, and I was nervous. And finally, one day, I was watching one of James's videos, and I had watched like 8 different passport videos that he had done. And finally, one day I watched one that he had just put out maybe like a few months ago. And I was like, I'm doing it. I'm sending it in. I'm just going to do it. And, it was the authentication to the State Department. I had my authentication done here in Virginia for probably 9 months. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm just going to send it in to the Department of State and got everything back. And I was like, damn, that was awesome. That was easy. Here's all my documents, sealed, gold seals on them and stamped. And it's like fucking legit. It's awesome. And I was like, but it took me a long time to get comfortable before I did that. So I wanted it done like now. I wanted it done immediately, but it took me a year just to get the balls and to understand it to the point where I was comfortable with getting just my certificates of live birth authenticated by the Secretary of State. Then once I got those back, I waited about 5 months before I sent the passport out. And then I saw one of James's videos and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to send it in. I've got everything here. I know what I'm doing. I just need to shit or get off the pot. So I sent it all in. And then this was a month ago. Last week, I got the documents back saying, hey, you didn't put a social security number on this, blah, blah, blah. Even though I sent all of the stuff the first time, it was notarized and everything. And I emailed James and he was like, don't worry about it. Don't take it personal. Just send it right back and you're good, brother. So that's where we're at now. I'm actually going to get those documents signed by the notary again tomorrow. And then we're getting all those back out. So I'm hoping here within the next month, I'll have that done. And then I have to get into this part of things, the automobile license plates. My cars are all paid for, so that's not a big deal. And that's one of the things that I think is required. Like, you can't have a car finance or owe money on a car when you want to try to go through this stuff. And like I said, I could be wrong, at least from what I remember from all the different videos I've seen. Like, if you want to get this done, you have to own your vehicle. It can't be
You
owned
can
by
you can
somebody else.
sue, like what I'm doing is I'm suing mortgage companies and suing loan companies and suing, and we're forcing them to discharge the loans through endorsements and through performance through legal means rather than by paying with
Mhm.
Federal Reserve notes. So there's other options, but they require a tremendous amount of knowledge and a tremendous amount of aggression and litigation.
Yeah.
So for people
Yeah,
who
I don't
are
want to get into all that.
people who are like
Yeah.
poor or don't have a lot of money and they're very like overwhelmed by the idea of having to pay for a whole car in order to own it, there are other options. Those options are only accessible through a tremendous amount of your time being spent to develop this whole situation in litigation into a professional skill. If you're able to do that instead of paying with Federal Reserve notes, then you can litigate all your bills and all of your mortgages away.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. OneStupidFuck.com, at @1_stupid_fuck on Twitter and X. Most of the people in the community that I am are on there, but also you can find Brandon on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you go and find him there, and we will catch up with you next time. Thank you, everybody, for coming in today, and I'm going to be posting a bunch of different clips because there's so much good information in this stream, and at least a good start for people to get some information, but we will check you later.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out. All right, let me click in.